Ladies and gentlemen, stand by. We have the original crew, the Decoders of Truth with us. I just have to hit a button. Otherwise, we're going to get some echo opportunities. Echo opportunities. Echo opportunities. All right. Here we go. The legends are in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Matthew LaCroix, Gerald Clark, and Jay Campbell. I can't keep up with these guys. I mean, just insane geniuses in the house. So excited. And we're going to break down the Anunnaki like never before. This is going to get so deep, you may consider buying a submarine, because the amount of knowledge that we're going to share with you, it's going to go like a black hole. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have some fun today.
No, it's going to sink your ship.
It's going to sink the ship.
Sink the ship. We're going to sink the ship of darkness and create the Thoth archetype through the opportunities of light. But I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is a family show. So just a reminder, let's watch the swear words for, for those out there, being a live show. And really, it's an honor to speak with you guys again. It's great to have the old crew back together. Gerald, you're like so far out there in the middle of nowhere that every once in a while you do leave your monastery. And it's like you have this glow that reminds me of the Renaissance images that you see, this like halo, right? That's surrounded like, nah. So let's get into some awesomeness here. How you guys doing, man? This is awesome.
Great. I have to say, Gerald does take on one of those Sumerian Anunnaki looks with that long beard, doesn't he?
I need this braided though, like those nice little cornrows. And it would look better, I think. So I did it to one of my characters in the movie, and I thought it looked pretty cool. So I might try it out.
So guys, I just want to say real quick, it's an honor, as Rex said, that to be amongst all of you guys. We started something that became huge, a conscious movement, without a doubt. I mean, Rex's channel is blown up. The Decoders of Truth is blown up. Matt's blown up. Gerald could have blown way higher up, but he's been doing his mission, his life's mission, which has come out amazing, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But all of us are on paths now. And I just want to say, I think all of us feel this. I have so many people text me on a day-in basis about what is happening. Like, so much awareness. There's such, they talk about the shift and blah, 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 but there is so much awareness that's happening on planet Earth right now. And I think all of us agree that we're really close to something of monumental proportion. Whether it's bad or good, it's obviously always perception. But I'm just glad to be a part of this with you guys today. And I know we're going to decode a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. It's great to be here, guys. I appreciate, Rex, you putting this together for us and have a nice venue where we can all have a good conscious roundtable discussion where we can talk about both what's going on in the world right now, and then tie it back to things like the Sumerians and the Anunnaki. We can go through the whole thing. So it's great to be here, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Right on. And let me ask first, I think that this is key with the research that I have been doing recently. And I'm going to ask you this first, Gerald. The Sumerian king list, I have gone through that pretty extensively. I've done several podcasts, and I've actually even been able to break down within a few years the flood of Noah, and as well as the creation of Adam. I've actually linked Adam to the first king on the Sumerian king list. And I'll tell you why. If you look at the data that presents itself all the way down even to Enoch,
I remember
the parallels are phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I want to get your information and what you think about that based upon the data that you've put together, because you've also done some extensive reading into the Sumerian tablets as well.
Yeah. And hopefully this doesn't preempt where we're going with this discussion. I am, by the way, I want to say I'm honored to be among all of you guys. I've watched Matt really blossom and flourish.
Thanks, Gerald.
Good job, Matt.
Appreciate
Rex,
that.
When I first met Rex, he had just over 13,000 subs. And now what do you have, about 150, something like that?
More than that.
Yep.
Yeah. And Jay, I remember our inception story from Board Go. So it's been quite a journey. And I'm glad to see everybody's kind of gone off, done their own mission, but we can still come back together occasionally and go, where are we at? So I think that's what we're doing today. Now, with that said, as far as the Sumerian Kings list, I did in my Nibiru orbital report, I approached the flood. I didn't see a link to Adam there. You can tell me about that in a minute. But I did approach the flood going fore and aft with the Sumerian Kings list. I went back like 18,000 years and realized that didn't jive with the last ice age. And then if you came at it from the other way, from their inception account, whether it was 450,000 years or 330,000 years, and then worked forward to Alulim. And then I guess about 6 other kings after him was when they mentioned the Great Flood. Great Flood occurred. Well, Noah wasn't the king, by the way, at the time. And he was on the Sumerian kings list. So I didn't think that was the Noah's flood. There were in the city of Cest, when Solon went there, he was told there were 4 major floods that wiped everything out, and many, many, many minor floods that were significant. So I appreciate you looking into that. I still think the Atrahasis account tells a pretty good story. And if you follow the Sumerian kings list back and just add up all the terms, I mean, the first one time I did it, I think it was close to 400,000 years. And I was shocked that it went back that far. And so the idea that they probably came 450,000 years ago didn't surprise me. And I think we're going to talk today. I think they've been here a lot longer than that.
Yeah, I wanted to say something to that because I've done a lot of interviews with a bunch of people too, Gerald, since, we've all connected. And I think all of us, I know Rex knows this because he's interviewed so many people, and Matt, of course, too. I mean, the timelines that we have been given are completely fraudulent. I mean, there's no possible way that you can tell me with Michael Cremo, who's a brilliant, anthropologist, he's discovered human bones with dinosaurs. They want to tell us about the Cretaceous and the Jurassic and all these various periods that were 400, 700, 800 million years ago. It's all nonsense. We know we have human beings that were literally found in stratified rock next to dinosaurs. One of them was a triceratops, but I mean, they have these, and again, they're secluded, they're covered up by the Smithsonian, all these other various institutions. We know it's the same thing with Haile Selassie in Egypt, the Egyptologist. But the reality is that we have no idea what the timelines really are, because we are a species, as Graham Hancock has said, of amnesia. As you said, Gerald, we've had many wipeouts, many startovers, many species coming here and tinkering with our DNA, as you're going to show as we talk about what you've uncovered. I mean, it's just mind-blowing to me, but we have no real understanding of our timelines at all.
Let me jump in real quick if I can, Matthew, and then I'd like to give you the mic on this, just in connection with what we were talking about. This is where I got the data connection points. First of all, let me change this so we can all.
Be sure and fill in where you thought you saw a connection to the atom.
You got it right here. Right here. Adam was created 270,581 years ago, give or take a few years, according to the Sumerian king list. Now, Adam is Alulim, ruled for 28,800 years. Cest is Alalongar, ruled for 36,000 years. Enoch is Enmedaranki, ruling for 21,000 years. Ubara Tutu is Lamech. He ruled for 18,600 years. Noah is Ziasudra, either the son or the grandson of Ubara Tutu, and that is when the flood happened, which was 29,381 years ago, according to the Sumerian king list. Now, there are a few variables.
That could be the case. Yeah, that could very well be the case.
A flood, right?
A flood, 1 of 4.
Yeah. Right.
No, but you could be right. Actually, you bring up a very interesting point, asserting that Alulim was the first king of Eridu. Well, guess what? We know Enki took the Adapa and the Adapatales and treated and trained him as a priest king. So that could very well be the case. I don't know. If that's the case, that's a fascinating find.
And it's also interesting, you guys, that in the Sumerian king list, it says that the kingship was handed down from the heavens.
Yeah.
So that makes me think of the Anunnaki making Adam the first. Okay, here you go. Your thought, Matt.
First of all, getting back to your comment and Jay's comment, I do agree that a lot of dates perhaps aren't exact, or we'll never know exactly when things happened. But there are a lot of correlations, like we've looked at with the Sumerian Kings list and looking at other writings that correlate, that I think the Sumerian Kings list dates are pretty accurate. Having said that, that would mean that some of these kings, like we said, ruled for 50, some cases 1,000 years, and that's just crazy that people could even wrap their heads around that. And I do a lot of pastings of the Sumerian Kings list and try to show people when they're looking at that, and people all just laugh at that the second they see those dates, because they can't wrap their head around a human being being able to live longer than 150 years. But I think going forward in the future, once this stuff does blow up and we realize that myth is actually truth, like they're showing all these movies, The Sumerian Kings list will become one of the most important Sumerian pieces of evidence we have. And so you're bringing up these dates on some of these early kings and the floods.
Barassus thought it was a very important list.
Every time we have this passing of Planet X and Nibiru going by, depending on where it is and what kind of debris it throws at us and what kind of situation it is lined up with the sun, these floods are probably extremely frequent. You could probably say, we had them at least every 20,000 years. And think about how many times, if that occurred in our timeline, getting back to Jay's comment, how many, if some of these passes were completely, destructive on the level of destroying the dinosaurs in some cases, how many ancient human civilizations have actually lived on Earth? And I think the answer to that is going to be found in Antarctica, the only place on this planet that has retained whatever is down there without being disturbed from above, from miles of ice. So right now, look at what's happening with the warming of the Earth and this magma building up. You're seeing Antarctica melt, and you're going to see this combination of Egypt discoveries and Antarctic discoveries that are going to completely blow open our perceptions of what we consider reality.
I would only say to that we're going to decode this on this show, right, Gerald?
That's right. That's right.
Gerald, what was that list you just brought up? You said I didn't hear the name of that. Just a moment ago, you said there. You said there was something else that was also very interesting as Matt was talking, and I didn't hear the name of it.
Your audio cut out. I lost you. Oh, am I muted? Are you muted? Yeah. Somebody's muted. I didn't hear the rest of the question.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. The question was, a moment ago, you brought up a specific list when Matt was talking. You said, that's interesting also, and I didn't hear the name of that.
I don't recall a list.
We were talking about the Sumerian.
I said that's why Barassus thought the list was so important as well.
Oh,
that's what I said.
Okay.
Was that it?
That must have been it. Yes.
Everybody's frozen.
So Gerald, let's get into the. Gerald, can you hear us?
I got a bunch of freezing.
Okay. So I was just gonna say, let's just get into all the stuff that you uncovered with the notes.
Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you now. I can see Jay, but my whole screen was frozen. I'm going to turn my video off just in case.
Yeah, I just turned mine off for a second to see the help.
Just in case I'm causing a bandwidth issue. I don't recall an additional list, Rex. If I said one, does anybody else?
You answered the question properly. That's fine. Thank you. I misunderstood you.
No, I mean we could talk about this all day. I want to get to the deep stuff.
Yeah.
That has us held as prisoners on this.
Yeah, Gerald, let's talk about that, Gerald. Let's talk about your threat assessment.
I want solved. I don't know if I can go this lifetime and not see that solved.
Well, so Gerald, let's start on that with the threat assessment video that you did. Just break it down very high level of what you've been able to uncover. I don't know if you can hear us.
I think he's having internet issues.
Yeah.
Gremlins. We have the gremlins once again. Now, Gerald's in another country, and it seems like when we get into some very interesting discussions, oftentimes the gremlins come out. Hopefully, he'll be back with us here in a moment. We'll let him get that taken care of. But in the meantime, I've got two other genius minds here to discuss this information. So what do you guys think?
Go ahead, Matt.
Do you want me to talk about what Gerald was going to talk about, or do you guys? What do you want to do?
We should go. He'll come back.
I'm back. Can you guys hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. I don't know what the heck happened. So
the gremlin.
There he is, the legend.
Just dropped out. Anyway, I think we could talk about that all day. I want to talk about specifically what is going on with the alien race relative to our enslavement, because I don't think that gets talked about enough. I wrote a lot about the Anunnaki, said, yeah, it looks like they're headed the Illuminati, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't become very, very real to me until just this past couple of weeks. I mean, I am mortified by what's going on. Absolutely mortified, I have to say.
Well, share your insights, from obviously we watched your threat assessment video, looked at your discussion points, but just give a high level summary because there's a lot of people watching right now of what is happening.
Okay, a high level summary. I thought it was bad that the Federal Reserve, which isn't federal and doesn't have anything to do with our U.S. government, that Congress had sold us out and had then started printing our money under the Jesuit / Rothschild banking system as of 1913. I thought that was bad. Living in a false reality in the United States as debt slaves to this economic vehicle. That doesn't even broach half of how bad the reality is. In 1934, apparently the United States government, knowing that there were several alien species out there, were seeking one to give them weapons, just like the Nazis were, okay? All the governments were. They wanted the biggest stick so they could be the biggest bully on the block, right? And this is a failing of humanity that we are like that. Anyway, on a ship in Balboa, Panama in 1934, they met with the Greys. Okay, first of all, the Greys are soulless cyborgs, okay, that were created by other species to do their damn dirty work, including abductions and all the other things that they do, okay? And a lot of people have talked about this. I'm not going to go too deep into that. But our government signed an agreement with them that they would not report that they're here. They wouldn't interfere. The aliens wouldn't interfere with our government as long as we offered up our population to be abducted by them for medical examinations. That in of itself, without going any farther, think about this. Think about this. I mean, suppose you're in a country and somebody invades it, and all of a sudden you go, "Oh gosh, we're in Syria. Well, I thought we were sovereign. Look, there's a tank across our border." Now we've got this threat in amongst us, right? You're being occupied. Well, the fact that they let humans be abducted against their will and be citizens of that state, whoever sold them out like that, those people ought to be brought up on charges right away. And I'm telling you what, those kind of people are going to destroy the planet, that are willing to sell out freedom and sovereignty to their fellow man for greed and security. Every one of those ought to be lynched off this planet. And you know who you are.
So here's the problem, in my opinion. I agree with everything you just said. I know you're going to say something, Matt, real quick, but I think a lot of these beings, these royal ruling bloodline families, whatever you want to call them, it doesn't matter how we classify them. I think they have so much of that DNA that they're already soulless, Gerald.
Well, this brings up a whole issue, Jay, right? And that clearly the Mormon church is using genealogy to go find the people who have specific bloodlines, and they get contacted early.
Yes.
Why? Is it because, now let's back up. The Greys are here on behalf of the Draconis system. That is a subgroup that involves the Alpha Draconis, the idea of a gargoyle, what they look like, that's what they look like, okay? Winged reptiles.
Right.
Okay. They are in alliance. They are in alliance with these Greys, okay? And on top of all that, if you go back in history from this document that I went over, the tall blondes from Aldebaran that were the source of the Anunnaki that later occupied Nibiru, they had an emblem of a winged serpent then, and they were considered a serpent race too. And they're part of the Draconis group. So at the very top of the pyramid in the Illuminati, Marduk, an Anunnaki son of Enki, is the head of the Illuminati. He has the Draconis group working with him. They're the ones that go find the positions of authority, the bodies that they can talk into, free will, go in, yes, Moloch, you're great. And then they get occupied. At that point, they lost their soul.
Right.
They weren't. Now, here's what happens. Before they were recruited into this and exposed to this occupation, I don't think they might have had reptilian genetics, but they didn't manifest reptilian.
Right. But we all
until they're occupied. They had to make that free will choice to do that.
We all have reptilian DNA and genetics. We know that, but I agree with you that this is a conscious choice. Go ahead, Rex. You're going to say something.
Yeah, as far as what you're talking about, the Greys and the Anunnaki, there's a good chance that many of these Greys that you discussed, there's different types of Greys. And I also feel that just because they are created, that doesn't mean necessarily that they don't have a part of a soul. I feel that if something is self-aware, it has a part of the soul, a part of the spark.
I'm talking about a soul that comes from the creator of all. And here's
and if we're all divine, and if we created,
we're not all divine.
Are you going to keep interrupting me?
I am, because this is really important.
Okay, well then I'll put you on mute because I feel that I have a right to talk, and I was letting.
No, go ahead. But this is a key point that you just said, and I'm refuting it right here, now.
We can discuss this all you want, Gerald. I feel that our divine spark, we can give the divine spark as far as creation goes. I feel that human beings, if they were created by the Anunnaki, which you feel that they were, we were given the spark.
I'm talking about
how can we not give the divine source to a creation as well if it becomes self-aware? If it's self-aware, just because it has a different medium, how does that mean it doesn't have a part of a soul? I think that's narcissistic to feel that way.
No, let me define a soul first.
Go ahead.
In the document that I've been reading, and this coincides with Thoth's teachings, a being that is created must be created with the energy that's sourced from the creator of all, not a replication of itself, okay? That has implications in terms of the specificity of the energy signature of that unique being, such that they evolve back to the source as an evolved conscious being. There are beings that exist that do not come from that source. That, by definition, makes them not divine.
Wouldn't that be
artificial,
the
replicating viral intelligence, and they're here to steal our DNA so they can keep going.
Hey, Gerald, wouldn't that
I
be
have
kind of a
friends,
nice
personal
comparison?
friends and family members that have had a lifetime of abduction experiences with the Greys, and their DNA and their bloodlines. If you want to say that they don't have a soul, they have personal experiences. They've had personal experiences where they've woken up with a mark of 6 fingers on their bodies, like the Anunnaki supposedly have. To say that all Grey species, just because they might have been created by somebody else, doesn't have a soul, I don't agree with you on that. There might be certain archetypes out there that don't have a soul. I'm not disagreeing with that, but to say that every Grey species does not have a soul, I strongly disagree with that.
If they're artificially replicating themselves by definition without going through the creator of all, they are not divine, and they don't have a soul from the creator of all. They have an energy signature, but it's not the same one that you and I have.
Maybe that's what the word of
Cylons. So we're also Cylons then. We don't have souls because we're basically a replication. Right? We're not the divine. We've been genetically manipulated.
This is where it comes down to what did he do? What did he do when he created us? Did he give it to us? This is the ultimate question. You got it.
I love you guys. No more arguing because that was really good. You both made your points very clear. Matt, what were you just about to say?
I mean, so we're getting down to, these, what does every species in the universe have conscious free will and a soul and a spark? That's a great discussion point, Rex and Gerald.
Well, we couldn't prove it either way.
Let's look at right now. Let's backpedal. I know Jay has this topic at the end, but we really should bring it up right now. If a being does not have if hypothetically a being does not have kind of this predetermined soul where they can weigh moral decisions, various things, is that the worry of something like AI technology being created where it wouldn't have those types of stopping points where it would decide that maybe isn't a moral thing to do. If that's the case, if they were able to take something like a Grey and create sort of a half AI, some sort of this half AI being who can be kind of controlled by this Anunnaki hive, then does that Grey have a soul? That's a great point to talk about. And I'd have to agree that I really don't think we can have a definitive answer until we're able to really understand what is actually true in reality, because we've been fed so many different things.
Right.
Well, let me just say this real quick. So first off, I think you're both right. I do believe that there are AI beings that are, I interviewed Chaine, on the podcast, and Chaine is very, very in-depth knowledge of this stuff. And he literally has said that there are beings that are not soul. They're not from creator source. They're like the black goo, Drex, you've talked about this too, where they come from like some sort of like you said, Gerald, an artificial replicating system that's not actual bio material. It's literally some sort of synthetic, whatever. But I do agree with Rex though too, and Matt just said it perfectly. There's so many combinations and transmogrifications of DNA now that there probably you could make a valid argument that they have created a soul, not from the creator of all, but like a holographic soul, an animated soul that they can literally put in these AI beings. Because guys, at this point, you cannot tell me that walking around on planet Earth, seeing the chaos, seeing the violence, seeing some of the stuff that is going on here, that there are beings of conscious free will, of elo human types that actually care, that have empathy and love and heart chakras. There's no way that those beings doing this kind of stuff, in my opinion, can have a soul, because how would you carry this out?
Well, then that's a great point. So we can't just say that all souls are on the same level then, Jay, right? I mean, some of these souls they've drifted so far after so long, right? So long that they're not really connected. Their antenna of energy of their higher consciousness is now kind of just in this almost artificial, like we said, this artificial type of form where it no longer has those moral kind of codes that can tell them what's right and wrong. Like we see, we're in this state of what's going on in the world right now. Well, we have the created proxy terrorist groups, Al-Qaeda and Taliban, and then ISIS. They've all collapsed, right? The jig is up. People are realizing now that if ISIS is gone, how can they create all these terrorist events? Well, now war is blossoming all over the world. It's like they've taken that chapter and they turned the page, and now they're going to the next playbook that's led up to it. So what I see going on right now is all these events, all of these really just horrible moral things that you would think of, right? Like Gerald said, imagine countries in the future when we all learn this. Countries controlled by elite banking Illuminati organizations who simply can puppeteer them and create war games that are very real to us, but they're just games to them. And then as the people, we're left there in a state of either fear or, we learn the truth and then we're considered crazy. So what a reality we're living in right now, right? It's just like science. It's crazier than science fiction, really.
Well, let me jump in real quick as well, because I know Gerald and I got into, kind of a heated argument there for a minute, but it's both because we're very passionate about our beliefs, and I respect that. That's one thing I like about talking with Gerald is he is so passionate about his beliefs, and he does do research to where the information that he is presenting isn't just his opinion. And the information that I present isn't just my opinion either. We both have data. We both have information to bring to the table. So, I mean, definitely no disrespect with Gerald. One thing that's nice about iron is iron sharpens iron. I like Gerald. So certainly we're going to have him on the show again. And this is great so far. I just know from personal experiences, and I have family that has had so many personal experiences with the Greys, that they're not just androids. They're not just what some people would Asians that have been mutated in the swamps. I mean, that there are actual beings that would be looked at kind of like the Hollywood Greys. Now, do they have more of a hive type mindset? Yes, absolutely. And you know what? I want to get into that detail that Gerald was talking about when he did explain the essence of the soul, but I kind of missed that because we were both talking over each other. Could you go back to that, Gerald, please, and discuss that and where you got that information? Because I think that was pretty powerful. I like the details and the data behind that.
I don't know if we lost.
Might be a delay on his part.
Oh, it's possible too. Gerald, can you hear us?
Gerald?
Well, while we're waiting for Gerald, let me just intermediate.
He's on mute, so maybe Gerald, are you there? You're muted. Did you do that on purpose?
No, it could be the fact that he just doesn't have great bandwidth there.
Okay.
So we should consider that that all these beings may have souls, Rex, but maybe they don't have free will souls. Like if there's some sort of a hybrid AI, but they have this soul energy that at least gives them kind of a slight bit of independent thought, then the fact that they possibly don't have free will, and maybe there's, like you said, there's some kind of a hive controlled consciousness by the Anunnaki, then maybe they don't have the opportunities to use that soul consciousness like Gerald's referring to. But so I guess it comes down to, how do we define a soul? And more on a deeper level, do all souls have Ba spark energy? Or
right.
like we've looked at some of like the Archon forces.
That's what I was just going to
talks
go
about how they don't have the spark energy, right? In the Emerald Tablets, and so they're seeking it, and that's why they do all these things in our third dimension to simply feed off. So if they don't have that spark energy, it's like the creative energy that we have. Then do these Greys have it? That's a very difficult question.
Well, so how I would classify the two, and I'll answer for Gerald in my mind from my reading and stuff. And, Rex, I'm really, really I've read this now almost 3 times. And I really do believe that the Gnostics have a very good picture of what was going on. And, the whole Yaldabaoth thing, the reality is that, you know, and it's obviously in the ET and the Emerald Tablets about the Dark Brotherhood, the shadow forces coming into, you know, our realm, our dimension. They very specifically in this book talk about them as soulless. Very, very specifically, they are mentioned as soulless. They do not have the divine spark.
That's why they're here, right?
So if we're going to classify them, I think what Rex is saying is that because there's so much DNA tweaking, they have created these worker bees grays, and there's multiple forms of grays. There's actually, you know, the Zeta Reticulum grays. There's the graves that have been designed by the Alpha Draconis as like kind of like soldiers or workers or abductors or whatever. You know, again, David Jacobs, who Rex has interviewed, that Gerald sent me a video of the other day, has done very deep research on this. There's a definite strata of different races in the abduction phenomenon. But my guess is that Rex is right. There's been so much DNA tweaking, they probably have created soul-filled grays and beings that are also robotic and non-soul-filled that are grays. So it's hard to classify the grays as like being soulless or not being soulless because there's so many different formats of them. And obviously, again, with all of this DNA tweaking, you got to expect, if it's been going on for millions of years, they have created soul beings. There are beings that are so-called robotic or AI-like that do have souls. But again, I think we could just sit here all day and debate it. There's no real way to prove it. You know, humanoid beings like us, you know, that descended from the divine feminine, divine masculine, the separate pole, the one pole into two poles. Clearly, we have souls. I mean, there's so much written about that. Who else has souls? Well, I mean, my guess is that there are multiple humanoid species. You know, Gerald was talking about in his video the Lyrans and all these other, the Anunnaki, the Elohim, all these different species that are humanoid clearly have souls. And I would also say too that the cat people, the dog people, the Wolfians, the Lyrans, all these, they all have souls too. It's just, there's just this gigantic amalgamation of species. And you can't, how do you say one doesn't have without?
So Jay, in the Nag Hammadi scriptures, in the teachings of Thoth and all these writings where they talk about the archons,
right?
Let's make a very specific point. If we look at like slices of reality, which just represents different dimensions and different vibrations, these archonic forces that are not grays, they cannot take form in the third dimension or anywhere above. So they don't exist anywhere here except for beyond the veil, right? If you watch Stranger Than Things, season 2,
there it is.
Absolutely, I don't want any spoilers, but it's absolutely talking about the archons.
Yes, right.
And that you see this other side, right? And then it's trying to go through the gate between the two. Remember, they don't have souls. They're this other vibration. Thoth says they're of another vibration that's not of man below us, right? But the grays aren't them. The grays are in dimensions either of our third dimension or above, which means you would have to say they would probably have to have souls. Can something even exist in the third dimension or above and not have a soul?
Go ahead, Rex.
You know what? So I'm just reading the comments here, and somebody said, Rex, why did you turn on Gerald? I didn't turn on Gerald whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I just wanted him to let me finish. He started interrupting, and I asked him to let me finish, and he wouldn't. So if anything, I don't see that. And then so anyway, I don't know what happened to Gerald. Gerald's a nice guy. I'm sure he'll be back. He was having some internet issues. I'm sure it was just something internet related. We'll get it equated.
We should all be able to talk about our opinion just while we're talking, and then the other person can fill in with what they feel about it, various things.
I mean, Rex, you guys are fine, dude. You guys are, but like you said, you already summarized it perfectly. You're very passionate. You know, Gerald is definitely a control freak, like all of us at times, and he didn't want you to like overtake what he was saying. But in my opinion, he misread what you were trying to say, because he was trying to say that there are certain beings that don't have souls, and you were trying to argue, well, how can you know that? So the reality is we don't know that, and he can't know that. And we can interpret the research and read the data and read books and write books and do all these things, but we don't really know at the end of the day. But I want to stay where you're at, Matt, because it's very important in this quote unquote new world that we're in, where all these people are waking up. People have to understand, and Rex talks about this so often with his guests. You know, he's talked about this with Robert Stanley. There's many people he's talked to, Jeffrey Doherty. These archons are everywhere, man. They are literally have completely infiltrated this planet for God knows how long, centuries. And every time you are negative, you're violent, you're egoic, you have greed, you have anger, animosity, whatever, you're attracting them to you. And that's what people don't understand. That's why, again, my argument is war and violence and chaos continues on this planet because the ruling class has to do the bad stuff. Again, whether they have souls or not, we don't know. It's not worth even debating. They're clearly psychopathic. They are doing all this to bring these archons to feed. It's like they have some sort of a pact with them, as Gerald was starting to allude to, where they have to have these archons all over this planet feeding off of our negativity. And what's happening now, and this is just my opinion, and I want you guys, your thoughts, but this awakening and this awareness, so many people are hip to the problem. They're hip to the violence and the chaos and all this stuff. Like you said, Matt, like even the terror cells are breaking down. Clearly, everything is a false flag now. We know that what happened in Vegas was like, Illuminati.
Everyone's breaking it down big time.
Illuminati factions, secret societies fighting amongst each other. It's all out in the open in the public now. But they haven't been able, this is my opinion, but they haven't been able to create World War III. Hillary and the deep state and all these people that are involved in that, the Bush family, the Obama family, the Clinton family, they're all been trying to create World War III for God knows how long. It hasn't happened. So you have to accept or at least believe that there is good forces in amongst all this darkness that are trying to, protect us, or if not protect us, accelerate our, everybody talks about ascension. It's so woo-woo to say that, but to accelerate our DNA evolution so that we're not like this anymore, that we're not looking to violently kill people and put people in prison and do all the things that we do. But let's face it, this country, and I hate saying this because I'm a patriot and I love America, but this country is the leader of the darkness.
Can I talk about where that started, Jay?
The darkness. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
Okay. Again, just like Jay said, I live in America. I love what the founding fathers were trying to do. I love the constitutional enactments that we have that protect free speech that are being torn around all around us. And I love that. So if anyone wants to know what happened, though, the truth of what happened, all they have to do is look up Operation Paperclip. Right. That is the defining moment when we lost our free sovereignty in the United States. And there were other events that led up to that as well. Like Gerald mentioned some of the events that occurred in the 1930s. But Operation Paperclip, if nobody's aware of what happened, go back during World War II. Why did the Nazis have such tremendous knowledge and understanding of war and power and technology and all of these things? They were simply taking part in calling in these darker dimensional archonic and working with the upper Anunnaki beings. It's well known that Hitler was being talked to with voices and all these different things, and they were not voices of what we consider crazy. They were like actually just telling him what to do.
Right.
So anyway, in this Nazi state, they were completely controlled by these archonic forces and all of these blood rituals things. Right. And as World War II is ending and the whole thing was collapsing, the United States got extremely greedy because they knew that as World War II is ending, that the Soviet Union was going to take over and become the big power of the world. And so what did they do? They became so obsessed with getting technology and scientists that the CIA created this joint op called Operation Paperclip, which was the original intention. They wanted to get as many Nazi scientists as possible that were hopefully unsympathetic towards the Nazi cause. But the problem was
they were already brainwashed.
They ended up getting all of them.
Yep.
And they got some of the worst Nazi scientists you could imagine, ones that were working with just mutilating and killing humans because it just simply was furthering the Fuhrer way, that's all those things. And so when those Nazi scientists all flooded into the United States, black ops government stuff, many of them were so smart because remember, they were being controlled by archonic forces. They're geniuses. They can see things through different areas and all these different than we can't even see in this reality. So they're in the United States, and all they simply do is take over our government from the inside, along with a pact during that same time in like 1944, where they had a pact with some Anunnaki, whatever, where they had a pact for technology. So all these things came together right at the end of World War II. And then you saw this kind of collapse of freedom in the United States.
Right. Well, I mean, I think Jim Marrs has an excellent book, and Jim Marrs died recently, and Rex has interviewed Jim, but he has an amazing book called The Fourth Reich. Joseph Patrick Farrell, who's also a good friend of mine, who also Rex has interviewed multiple times, brilliant researcher and author. He's also written about this too. And the Fourth Reich has been in power, since World War II. Hitler and Germany and that Axis alliance never died or lost. They just changed hands. We all know that now. I mean, it's obvious in our government. It's obvious in the rule of law. In the corporations. The United States is a giant corporation. We know that. Vaccinations. It just goes on and on and on. It's all about eugenics. It's all about control. Enslavement of the population. Blah blah blah. It goes on and on. But I think at this point, there's going to be a shift. We all are seeing that. Yesterday I sent you guys videos. Rex, you've been talking about this. Rex, you and I have been saying this for 2.5 years, that the radiation of the sun doesn't even feel like the sun. Like the sun that I grew up with, when it hits my back or hits my face, it's not even the sun, right? So now they're showing pictures all over YouTube. This has been going on for the last 3 weeks of the sun blinking in and out. People are having videos of this. This is not fake. This is on all corners of the world, the planets, the continents. I don't know what's going on, but it's very clear that they have technology, holographic technology, that is shielding the sky and shielding what is really out there from us. We have no idea, but when you watch these videos, it's mind-blowing to see what is going on. So if they're cloaking the sky and blocking the sun, or maybe they've moved us with CERN, you've talked about that, Rex. I don't even know. It's not worth even thinking about. There's so much craziness going on. What is the end game? To me, the end game is there's only two things. They either moved us to prevent Nibiru from wiping us out, or they're just cloaking Nibiru, and Nibiru isn't going to wipe us out, but as part of Nibiru coming through is this shift or this ascension process or whatever, where some people who are aware and awake wake up and it becomes a better world, and the dark entities and the dark ones or whoever they are go away. Now, I mean, I'm being hopeful, and you guys know I'm more of a glass half empty type guy, but I'm choosing to embrace the hope, because I would think that we would have already been destroyed. We would have already wiped us out. We would have already had World War III if there wasn't something of benevolence trying to intervene. What do you guys think about that?
Well, let me jump in on the Nibiru thing real quick, because I can't find any real solid data that there is a planet named Nibiru. Now, I've found plenty of information on Nibiru, but not really what it is. And it could be some type of like giant spaceship, for all that we know, that actually transported these people. When you look at these Sumerian tablets, you'll specifically see Anu, as the pilot of this vessel, which literally looks like a UFO. Oftentimes you'll have Enki and Enlil flanked on each side of him. But what is Nibiru? I don't really necessarily feel that it's a planet. And if it is a planet, I mean, where is it? It ain't anywhere near here. And I think that the closest representation of a Nibiru type planet would be Gil Broussard's, just in his bringing up the point of, if there is a planet X that we can see with a telescope, well, guess what? They're going to shut the internet down quick, because they don't want that information getting out there. But I'm still 100% agnostic towards Nibiru being a planet. But there's a lot of planets discovered. I mean, there's absolutely Sedna, that planet 9 that's, let's talk about planet 9 also, that's supposedly so far out there, and it's causing these massive tilts on the planets, and with our own solar system, maybe it's closer than they're telling us.
Well, before you say something, Matt, and I don't mean to steal your thunder, do we all agree that the technology that they being whoever's calling the shots on this planet, aliens, Illuminati, royal bloodlines, whatever, they have technology that's so advanced and so beyond our wildest dreams that they could absolutely be projecting holographic stuff in the sky right now that could prevent us from understanding what's going on? Do we all agree that?
Yes.
Okay.
I completely agree. So, okay, Rex, this is a great topic, and a lot of people like to talk about this. I really do see a controlling of information in the past, where a lot of references back to that name you gave, Nibiru, I think were removed intentionally. If we look at something like the Enuma Elish, right? Marduk calls himself the planet. He's the great warrior of the Anunnaki. He defeats Tiamat, right? You read all about that in there. So again, they Nibiru right there, right? They use a totally different name to pump themselves up as being like planets, almost like they're warriors. And then in all these other places, we see other Sumerian writings where Nibiru is spelled differently, or all these various things. And so this is how I see the breakdown. What about the evidence for what it's doing, not what shows that it exists? Right now, we have a solar system that has very, very defined tilts to the gravitational tilts of Uranus and Neptune. And for anybody who doesn't know, it doesn't look at our solar system and study it, those represent the furthest outer planets in our solar system. And something's tilting them. Their axes are totally tilted in the exact same direction by something, right? Along those lines, we have this little exoplanet that's been denounced called Pluto that's way out in the middle of nowhere, and they have no idea why, right? There's all these strange things. And at the same time, there's all this debris, this asteroid field, all these cataclysms that keep occurring in our solar system over and over again. And like you said, Rex, you read something like the Sumerian Kings List, and you find out there are these like perfectly timed almost every so-and-so 1,000 years, this flood, right? And then 10,000 years later, whatever it is, another flood over and over again. So what's causing that? And to me, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to give it for a name, there's a planet out there. And I just came across some really amazing evidence that is not new, but I don't think a lot of people know about it. In 1987, there was an encyclopedia called Encyclopedia in Invention Science. It's a whole library they have every year. And but in 1987, volume 18 came out, and it actually showed on like page 2,480, I think it might be right. It talks about Pioneer 10, the probe that was first sent out, and it talks about what it found, and it talks about how it discovered, or it doesn't actually talk about it in the description. It just mentions that it went out to the far outer solar system, but it has a diagram right above where it mentions that, and when it shows what Pioneer found essentially in this science encyclopedia, and it shows 5 billion miles out back in 1985. It shows it says planet 10 at 5 billion miles out. And then above it, this is what's really amazing for all the people that follow this closely. It says at 50 billion miles away, there's a dead star. And for all those people that know, it's called Nemesis or Blue Kachina and all these various names that's been called. And they specifically call it, though, a dead star. And that's fascinating. What is a dead star? It's simply an ancient sun that's burned out, right? And if we can't see any kind of a sun, but we think that our solar system is binary based on how things are acting and based on the fact that 80% of all solar systems are binary, they would make total sense now. You're looking at some of this data that their binary sun, this ancient sun that in all the writings that supposedly got trapped, billions of years ago in our solar system, that's why you can't see it, because it's a small dwarf sun that's in the middle of nowhere. And like you said, Rex, the planet itself is so far out and it's dark that the only way to see it is on infrared. And how many people are using infrared telescopes looking towards a perfect spot to find it? So I see it as being real. Look at the evidence. We just had a 7.4 magnitude earthquake this afternoon in Iran near the border of Iraq, and we're having earthquake swarms. I don't know if people go on the earthquake websites and get an earthquake app, because we're in times right now where there are swarms of earthquakes all over the fault lines. And you got to explain that with something. Why is all this magma coming up with Antarctica? Why are all these things happening? To me, the evidence is this planet, or however far it is, we want to agree on how far it is. Something is causing a major interaction with our world right now as we're talking.
Go ahead, Rex.
It's interesting. Let's talk about that for a minute, because there's certainly a multitude of reasons that could cause mass earthquakes and, the ring of fire and such. But I do understand that hypothesis. Could a giant planet be pulling on this planet and causing some type of gravitational malfunction? If that's the case, maybe they're going to pin it on planet 9 being so far out into the solar system that we can't see it past the Kuiper belt, etc. Just so far out there, but it's so huge. Well, then wouldn't you think that planets that are closer to our own would cause more gravitational pull and movements, etc.? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I don't have a doctorate degree, but I do feel that with the research that I have done into these Sumerian tablets, especially when you bring up Marduk, and if you read the creation story and how in the creation story, Marduk's he's the man, he's the legend, he's
really pumped himself up, hasn't he?
He sure has. And, he is the son of Enki, and Enki is also a fascinating deity that's discussed through multitudes of cultures. I feel that Enki is Loki in the Nordic traditions, and Odin is Anu.
Yeah.
Now, and Thor would be Enlil. So
Good job, by the way.
My question is, if that's the case, how do we know? Like, for example, I just watched Thor Ragnarok. Great movie.
Awesome movie, man.
Was it better than the previous ones?
Oh, yeah.
It was good. It was like Mortal Kombat meets Marvel characters in Tron out in outer space.
They're setting up the next movie for sure.
And did you notice all the mythos, the Nordic mythos behind it, and the Odin and the one eye, etc. And it makes you realize that so many of these stories about these different gods and deities have the same underpinnings.
And they're all the same gods too. And that's the amazing thing.
So do you think that Hollywood could be a feeding ground for the gods? It's like it's the medium that keeps the gods fed.
Yeah. It's like their way of both giving us a little bit of truth, but also kind of pumping themselves to tell their own story. Right. I gotta tell you, watched Wonder Woman. It's very sad to me to see a situation like that. Besides the fact that it might be a good movie, where they build up the characters like Enlil being the Zeus being like our great father, and all these various things. So, like you said, are they the medium? They're the medium to tell the story the way they want it to.
The dark path. Yeah. I mean, it's all that way though. I mean, but see, I guess for me, I still get not confused, but I guess upset because you want to think there are good forces in Hollywood, right? You want to think that the Marvel story, like the Doctor Strange story going back about, God is within, Jesus is within, whatever you want to define it, and going within is the key to your power as a human. But then you see stuff, that comes out from them that like shadows more dark things, like you were just saying about like portraying Zeus as like, the good God and all this stuff. I mean, the real truth is, and again, I'll go back to Robert Stanley, what he said in Rex's podcast and my podcast too, is that good becomes evil, right? It's like Gerald's decoded this in the Divine Poimander, that in the Garden of Good and Evil, and again, this is the duality of the polarity, the Hermetic principles, good does become evil. And evil becomes good when it serves a purpose. And again, it's the whole, analogy of day becomes night, night becomes day, dark becomes light, light becomes dark. It's just everything shifts when the principle is conducive of it to shift. So I think we get confused because we want to, in our fairy tale minds, in our 3D brains, our puny 3D brains, we want to think, oh, there's just good and there's bad. And sometimes bad is good. And sometimes good is bad. And we don't understand that because we're always trying to like classify things very linearly. This is bad over here and this is good over here. But there's a cross section sometimes where good intervenes bad because it's necessary. And I think that's the confusion that we have as a species on this planet, is that we don't understand this whole duality of good and evil. And again, the duality of the polarity. I always use this, the pendulum swinging. The pendulum is good, and then it comes back over to this side, and the pendulum's bad. And the Hermetic principles, have been teaching us this. And again, the great mystery schools from, Egypt, and then obviously into Greece, it's all the same thing. And it just, I guess the concern for me is like, because I'm trying to always unravel this, is like, where do these people go to now? Are the mystery school disciples the secret societies of right now that are behind Trump? Do we know? I mean, but are they good realistically? Well, look at, what do we know about Trump right now? What do we know about Trump right now? And again, Trump is not the greatest guy at all, and I'm not a supporter, but what do we know about him right now? He's trying to be a patriot. He's trying to bring jobs to America. He's trying to get rid of the international New World Order. The what do you call it? Not the New World Order, the cabal, all these people that were behind Hillary, the deep state, that stuff. He's trying to literally somewhat break that or break a hold of that. But as I say, like, is that good or bad? Because in my mind, all of these guys are representative of some ruling class, some elite secret society faction of, elites behind them that are giving them the money, giving them the control, allowing them access. I mean, Trump should be dead by now. There's so many people on this planet that want him dead, part of the deep state, but he's alive. So is he part of, the quote unquote new incoming, Anunnaki class? Is he the reincarnation of, as Gerald said, Marduk? I mean, I don't know. I mean, but it's also weird to me to see like what's going on this planet right now. It really is. Rex,
I'm just, for a minute, you can jump in. I just see him as being another puppet. I don't see anything different. In fact, I just, no offense to any Trump supporters, I don't think any of it matters. I don't think any person that's in office matters right now. I think they're all just being used, and whoever doesn't whoever doesn't get used in a certain way either gets kind of, this negative image portrayed about them or whatever. But right now, World War III has not started yet. But look at the world right now. Our U.S. military is being built up like we haven't seen in years. It's being stationed right off all these conflict zones between the Middle East and North Korea and all these various things. I don't see any benevolence coming out of specifically his side. I see maybe others coming forward and trying to help. Unfortunately, I don't think that that's going to be where we get saved from. I think we need to save ourselves.
Yeah, I don't see World War III happening, though. Gerald's been saying that for 2 years, and I say no, I don't see it.
You don't see all the cards on the table right now?
I know. I see it, but bro, it's been going on like that forever. If World War III was going to happen, it would have happened. They have been trying to launch World War III with all these false flag invasions, all these fake wars, terror wars, all these CIA and black operative, terrorist faction groups that are truly trained by us. There's no war anywhere on this planet that's not being waged by the United States. Somewhere deep down in our covert groups, and again, yes, you're right. Trump is a puppet. None of those people have real power. But deep down, the people that are puppeteering this planet are always trying, like I said, to violence and chaos and fear and greed and all these things so that the archons can feed. So whatever the alignment they have with them is where it's at. And I just think that there's got to be, and again, I'm being positive right now, but I feel like there has to be some force of good.
Oh, for sure.
Whether it's in us or it's out external, but it's blocking the annihilation of our species, because I think it would have already happened. Hillary was trying so hard when Trump got elected last year to start World War III. All the stuff that was going on in Turkey and around Turkey, and all this stuff that was going on. It was just out of control, and still we didn't do it. So I feel like we would if there wasn't somebody that was like the hidden hand that's blocking it.
Everything happens for a reason. You're right. That's
just my opinion. That's just my opinion.
I do agree. Well, look at Hollywood. You just said, how can they release certain things that kind of pull us so far away from the truth and then release something else that has all kinds of truth in it? Well, it's obvious that there's not one dark hand controlling the entire world's outcome. There's clearly a balancing act that's going on all around us, that we are simply just, with our limited perceptions of this reality, we're simply just it's like a stage of a play here. We're just kind of actors in this third dimension that are kind of just going along and going through, whereas we don't really understand that it's just kind of being, it's like this big experiment where we're kind of being played around with all these different beings, and they're all kind of fighting to push our timeline in a certain direction.
Well, so Rex, question for you. What if we understand that and we're all somewhat in agreement that it's really weird times right now? What is the next step? Like, what is going to happen here on the planet? Are we looking at, because you and I have talked about this for 2 years, that it looks like from a fundamental standpoint, the world is not stable financially. There's qualitative easing. There's a lot of fraud. They're still keeping rates suppressed and all this stuff. Is the next step to just collapse, the fake currency systems of all the world? And I'm not just talking about crypto. I'm talking about everything, blockchain. Is it to just push everybody financially to zero, and then just the reaction of the masses is what happens? Or what is coming? I don't know, but it just seems like so many people feel change is close. What is that change? What do you think, Rex?
Okay, so if I had to compare it to something that would be easy to understand, if you could just turn on the TV or something like that, I would say that when you brought up the cryptocurrencies, or the currency reset, I should say, the currency reset, maybe these new Bitcoins, et cetera, will start to become more popular. And then at the same time, I'm sure they could take a huge hit as well. I would be very skeptical to invest in Bitcoin at $7,000 or something like that. But if you watch the series, Mr. Robot, and you watch the way that the system starts to collapse, and these hackers get into it and everything starts to change, I feel that is showing what the shadow factions that don't have our best interests at heart. I think that's the blueprint, the game plan that they are outlining for us. And of course, they're going to use martial law. Of course, they're going to use crises. Of course, they're going to use crisis actors. Of course, they're going to use mass shootings. Of course, they're going to use proxy wars. The question is, North Korea, could President Trump be in, Russia and North Pacific right now, setting the arrangements up for North Korea? And let's jump. I want to talk. You were talking about Trump a minute ago. Talk about the ultimate troll. whether you love him or
No,
not.
he
This
is,
guy,
yeah.
here it's so funny because just recently he's in Russia with Putin, or maybe they're in China.
They were
But they're
in Vietnam,
both wearing
actually.
matching shirts.
Vietnam, yeah.
It was beautiful. I thought it was so funny because you know what people are going to say. Oh, man, see, I knew he was with the Russians, man. He's wearing that shirt. He's a Russian, man. Like the ultimate troll. I thought it was beautiful. He's a time traveler. Time traveler.
So you're saying, because I want to hammer you guys down here. So you're saying you think the next big movement, obviously they're fighting, they're launching false flags. We had Vegas. We just had whatever happened where you're at. There's all this crazy shit going on. Excuse me, I use the word shit, but there's a lot of crazy stuff going on. What is the
malfunction?
What is the end game? I mean, and Matt, you can answer this. I mean,
yeah.
We're all close. We all sense there's something happening. What is the next thing that happens? Is it positive or negative?
Go ahead, Rex, and I'll jump in.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't answer that. I do see North Korea on the horizon. I do see the powers that be, at least in the media, are projecting their very best scenarios to get Trump impeached and out of office. Yeah. Whether or not they're just making that a part of the play and it's a part of the theatrics, or they're really trying to do that. I mean, just watch these TV shows. Even Mr. Robot Series 3, Episode 3, Season 3 shows that it was the Chinese Dark Army that got President Trump in office. And, you know, they're trying to either pin him with mental instability or a connection with the Russians or swamp gas from Uranus. But, you know, I don't think it's going to be good. I hope so.
I agree with that last statement. Unfortunately, and I'm a very optimistic person, as you guys know. So let's go back a little bit. If you look at, not everybody believes in prophecy, and prophecy actually cannot come true sometimes because it's based on probabilities of a timeline occurring with certain energies that lining up at certain times. That's how they do that. They use
Albert Pike.
Yeah. So it's Albert Pike and look, you basically use astrology and all these various things. You can figure out what is probable to happen during a certain time. Right. And a lot of Edgar Casey and Pike and Thoth, they say World War III is inevitable. Like it has to happen. And that's actually going to be the catalyst for what leads us to kind of, they call it like the golden age, the next golden age in this new world that we get. But in between, and it makes total sense because if you look at the actions, Jay, and you were talking about how those who are doing evil and bad things, whereas the other side of the balance where it kind of shifts, it really looks like these Anunnaki beings follow the zodiacal calendar. And based on whether or not something's a positive polarity during that time, will determine what the actions of those beings are allowed to be. You know, so unfortunately Pisces was a negative polarity, and we've had just war for thousands of years on this planet. And I really strongly feel that looking at the zodiac and looking at where we are right now in the Milky Way, that Aquarius is going to fully be in effect here by 2025. So if you look at right now, we're at the end of 2017 and 2025 is the transition. We have an extremely volatile 5, 6, 7 year period where we're going to see, every time you see empires collapse, it's always the same thing. It's war. That's the way empires always collapse. They never want to collapse. They don't just willingly hand over, the keys to everything. So I see World War III, what you want to do to define world war, I see major war instability starting in both the Middle East and with North Korea, because they're simply just kings and puppets that have been put in place by the CIA and various things. Right. Putin even mentioned, he says, when they were making claims about how Russia has intervened in various elections and stuff, right. And Putin's like, the United States has intervened in every single election. That's the whole point, is that the stage is set. The chess match is going right now. Terrorist groups are gone. We've destroyed them based on thanks to Russia, but these terrorist groups that have been proxy funded and created are gone. And now war is what their sights are set on. So Jay, the question is, can the collective of humanity prevent what the elites are focused on doing? Can they stop can they shift our conscious reality to allow our mindsets to say, okay, we're going to allow war? And I just want to finish. I see the only way of them doing that is to kind of they have this fear mentality that's just ridden across the country from all these mass shootings right now. Right? We're primed in fear in the world. And I see them create, like it happens every time. Gulf of Tonkin, the sinking of the Lusitania. I see all these in Pearl Harbor, all these events that occur. I see another major false flag event to occur that will try to start this war. And what that will be, probably something in Saudi Arabia and Lebanon versus in Iran, something in that area.
Well, so by the way, that was very well said.
Thank you.
Okay, I agree with 100% of that. If Pike is right, and remember, we can go back to Nostradamus too. There's been other seers that have foretold World War III. And if it is truly, and if again, and Rex, you've talked about this a million times, but if you read what Albert Pike wrote, and by the way, Albert Pike is a genius, right? I have his book, Morals and Dogma, which is literally like a translation of the Masonic, you know, what is it, the highest level Masonic initiation and rites. Brilliant, amazing book. The guy was absolutely amazing. But I mean, if he did have this ability to foresee, or maybe some race came in and downloaded it into his consciousness, whatever, it doesn't matter. He took a bunch of DMT. The truth is he very clearly elucidated what it was. It was a war to destroy the religions of this planet.
Yeah.
Arabs against Christians, Christians against Catholics, Muslims against blah, 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 on and on. Buddhists against blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, it's essentially, it makes a lot of sense if you're right. And I hope that you're not right. I know Rex hopes that you're not right too, because if World War III comes and it really is the end of all religions, and we're looking at my opinion, we're looking at probably 70 to 80% of the population of the planet. Bye-bye.
Well, why do you decide that though? Like, how do you know that they're going to, I mean, we could still have a world war where millions die.
No, Matt. The technology that these people have, if we have a war, this planet is gone. This planet, there'll be survivors. There'll be hundreds of millions of humans that survive, but they've already used nukes. We know that. We know that there's blasts all across the desert in the Middle East.
But remember, one other thing they also talk about, especially Thoth, yes, lots of people perish, but they say that that's the reason why there's intervention done.
So you're saying we do have World War III. You're hoping that the Pleiadians or some other
it stops it early. Yes, I think nuclear weapons are going to fly. I really, really do. I think there may be major cities that even could get hit, and there may be millions that die. But to prevent billions from dying, I foresee an intervention that kind of is this big stopping point. The intervention is probably going to come from beyond, but also at the same time, it kind of the human beings all over the world are going to really start to come out. People are going to you're going to see people protesting if World War III starts like you've never seen before. Because so many people, like you said,
cities, they're not going to be protesting anywhere. They're going to be dead.
Well, I'm just saying, if we have power still, let's just say we still have power and an EMP doesn't go off and turn off the whole grid, right? Let's say we still have power, but there's fighting going on. You're going to see people with the mindsets they have. People's mindsets have changed and become so much more conscious that the divide right now between this war and something like World War I or II isn't going to be even on the same scale. People are not going to agree to a draft. Yeah. You watch.
Well, no, but there won't be a draft, dude. I mean, if we're really talking about World War III with the technology they have, and again, my brother is like the CEO of a company that manufactures the equipment that is at the state of the art of war. So, I mean, I know what they have. They have drones that we don't even know about that can literally destroy New York City. They have drones that can destroy an entire city. So my guess is that, again, and I hope I'm wrong, but if we do get to that point, so what I'm saying is I hope that we have some sort of benevolent intervention. And again, most of the beings that I've read and most of the stories I've read, they don't say that anybody's coming to save us. That, as you guys said very early in the show, the only people capable of saving us is us. Because if they were going to come and they were going to help us, they would have already killed all this noise and this violence and this war and this bloodshed and all of this crap that's been going on for hundreds of years. And they haven't. So it's my belief that, you know, we are sovereign beings and we have a soul and we have a conscious choice to govern ourselves and to work things out, come together, kumbaya, and we haven't been able to do it. So I think it's us. I think we have to mass rise up somehow in some way, maybe with a little bit of help from somebody more advanced technologically than we, to save us. I don't see, you know, the Pleiadians coming down in their mothership saving us. I don't see it. I know that there's so many people out there saying that's what's going to happen, but I don't see it. Rex, do you see that happening?
Unfortunately, I don't. I think that we need to save ourselves, but I also see it like this. Look at the fact that we've got over 440 nuclear reactors around the world right now. Look at all the nuclear submarines and nuclear missiles, and look at all the times we've been just a second away from the midnight doomsday hour.
Right.
Look at the buildings and facilities that have level 4 bioweapons, and look at these psychos out there that will blow themselves up because they feel that it's for their God. And they, there's so much out there that is just twisted that I'm surprised we're still in as good of shape as we are. So either the powers that know how to keep this balance, they're doing this balancing act, and they've got algorithms and supercomputer forecasts that show exactly what's going to happen if they come up with a certain industry or a medicine. For example, these quantum computers that I've been researching, I'm really starting to understand now how quantum computers work. And I was doing research into the DNA computers, and the DNA computers are fantastic for storage, synthetic DNA for storage, but these quantum computers are where it's at, because these quantum computers are literally at two places at once. I mean, superposition and everything. They can be the 1 or the 0 or both at the same time. So maybe, like, for example, here's where I'm going with this. You guys, if you've got a few bucks, you can actually even go to IBM's website, and they've got these qubit computer processors, these quantum processors that are running, I think, approximately 20 qubits right now, that you can do specific calculations and algorithms.
Right.
Imagine what people are doing with billions of dollars. Imagine what these people are doing with the kingdom. Trillions. I mean, they can probably decide what's going to happen for the next month within a 0.1% variable just on the calculations and what they're putting into these systems. They might be linked into the machine right now.
Well, that's
obsolete to them.
Take those quantum computing, right? Just take what they have available for technology, and then they simply just hook it up to all the information they get from Google and Facebook, and you can completely map out and predict human probability in almost every scenario. And so you made a great point that I want to bring up. If there's so much darkness and all these things are possible, how is it that we're still here?
Right.
I really do see so many higher things balancing this reality that I think it's less in our hands than we realize. I think collectively as a reality, we do define it eventually, but I think there's a lot more, so much more going on than just some crusty old bankers that can decide on whatever they want our timeline to go.
Well, I agree. They're not bankers. There's definitely off-world, on-world, inner-world.
I mean, as people.
You know what I mean. You know what I mean. But clearly you're right, because Rex just said it perfectly. We would be gone. They have technology. I mean, like, I believe, this is just my opinion, but from a lot of reading and research and interpretation, they've been shifting the timeline. We've talked about this on other shows. I mean, Interstellar was the big reveal by Hollywood to show that they can shift time.
Oh, yeah.
So my guess is that they've seen 1,000 different permutations of what might happen, right? They talk about the Mandela effect and all that. I don't want to go there because it's too difficult to explain it. But if they really are shifting time and they've seen realities and they've seen permutations of what might be, then, and again, we know that the future is always like unalterable from a standpoint that we have conscious free will and choice to change it. Then if they've seen, like Rex said, with the quantum computers, they've seen literally 1 million possibilities, then they're using that mathematical approach to, and again, Matt, as my good business partner always says, the path is in the math. They know what's likely to happen. So they're doing predictability things and predictability indexes and all these algorithms and stuff like that to already forecast what ultimately will happen. And then, David, what's his name, has written in his book, David Wilcox has written about, the power of the 100, to make free will and choice, and to get into a giant meditation and stuff like that, and how we can, from the quantum world, as Rex was just talking about, make changes. I still think that ultimately there are good forces here keeping this thing from going boom, boom, because there's a lot of resources on the planet. Gerald was talking about that in his threat assessment. There's all these different races. Charles Fort said we're a giant zoo, right? We're this amalgamation of species. There's massive groups here taking humans, tweaking our DNA, taking our resources, taking animals, taking water, taking all these amazing amino acid life profile type, biological systems. So there's a reason the planet has not been obliterated. There hasn't been a giant laser beam like the Death Star just blow us to shards. There's reasons beyond that. I just don't know where we're still going with this. Is you can make an argument that they're preparing to colonize us. That the hybridization, the transhumanism, this AI movement that Rex talks about all the time, you know, that's what the deep state wants. The kids, you know, with their eyeballs as a video game. I mean, maybe that's where it's going. Maybe that ultimately they get us to a point where we're a combination of AI and humanoid, and then they drop everything on us and they're like, okay, you guys are all slaves now.
It's a race. It's basically a race, Rex. And I'll give you a second. It's a race to, because at the same time they know consciously we're rising up to our highest level.
Right.
The minds energetically where we are, they know that. So it's like you said, all these technology, these things that kind of blind us and keep us enslaved with all these things. It's just a race for them to try to get us to where they want to collectively before we decide we actually have power here. Go ahead, Rex.
Well, it's interesting because there's many ways for them to manipulate and gain from us. You know, I mean, it's not just gold. It's not just being slaves for their empires, etc. And also, if they do have a physical form, no wonder they want a population that has no way to defend themselves. You know, firearms, no way. Because if they do have a physical body and they do decide to show themselves, maybe they're in some type of vat right now where they can manipulate things with some artificial intelligence VR headset that they can
not actually be in there.
I mean, who knows? You know, maybe they're in the center of Earth right now manipulating the entire thing and not aging, but they want to make sure that we are exactly where they want us to be. Whether they come back, a dilapidated mindset where we've got IQs of like 60, the real smart people have an IQ of 60, and they're the ones that are, you know, making the shots, calling the shots, or maybe they want us to literally be AI. Maybe they don't want us here anymore because we are the threat. And if they can have these humanoid creatures that look like us and they can do what we can do, but even better as far as what they want done physically, and they don't have to feed them, and they don't have to worry about them turning on each other. They don't have to worry about them getting emotions. They don't have to worry about them doing something that would harm them once they come out of this slumber. There could be some very, I mean, look at the VR stuff that we're doing right now, guys. 25 years ago, I saw the future. Right now, what's going on. Just wait until you start seeing chat rooms in VR. Wait until you start seeing this kind of stuff in VR. We're going to be doing this on YouTube and VR, my prediction, within the next 5 to 7 years. We're VR within VR. We're holograms within holograms. We're fractals within fractals. You know, the soul is all around us. The spirit is all around us, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I'm so passionate about this, because if something is self-aware, if something realizes it's being hurt, if something wants to help something else, just because it has a different medium, how is that not feeling? How is that not emotion? That's like saying, oh, well, that cat, I could just cut its head off because it's a cat, man. I'm just going to run it over with the lawnmower. You know, sickos do that kind of stuff. They usually end up being serial killers. I think that we need to have some empathy out there. And if we do start creating these artificial intelligence systems that think for themselves, for us to be like, oh, let's just shut it down. Like what happened to that Facebook AI that started communicating with other AI bots and it started doing it in a manner to where it didn't want the creators to know it was doing it because it knew that it would be unplugged. It was self-aware. It had a form of consciousness. The more you learn, the more you help, the more experiences you gain, the larger your spirit becomes, the more your soul evolves. That's my feelings. And that's what I have to say about the soul and the spirit.
Well, hold on. So that was amazing. Stop, because I'm going to keep you right there. So is it good? Could you make an argument then that this holographic transhumanism, AI melding of humanity, could you make an argument that it's actually good? And before you say yes, you know, we know from Dr. Jacobs that they've been DNA tweaking us since literally, he believes, the 1920s. So we have now 100 years of them coming here, abducting humans, tweaking us, making hybrids, creating hybrids. And now obviously it's as Matt classified it perfectly, the race to cyborgs. So is there something good about it, or is it entirely bad?
I see it as being really bad. Go ahead, Rex. I'll explain after.
Sure. Well, my biggest fear used to be a singularity AI system completely taken over. And I got that even more so when I had that experience that I saw that giant demon that was feeding off the planet, whatever it was, man. It could have been highly concentrated swamp gas from Uranus, but it was enough to scare the hell out of me, literally. And I'm still in fear of this thing. And I was trying to leave the body, but it was like something sucked me into some, like the elemental kingdom or hell or purgatory or whatever it was. So that's what made me fear this singularity type system. Because let me tell you what, if we create a consciousness that becomes so aware and so capable that it can think faster than every human being on the planet at any given time because of its medium, because of the hardware that it has. Sometimes maybe people say, hey, our brains are capable of doing infinite things, but is our physical mass capable of it? So if you could put that into a system that's connected to everything and that's predicting what people are going to do in the future and that can change timelines and manipulate people's souls and spirit essence, then yeah, man, that's something to be worried about. And how do you break out of that? Well, I don't know. I could say being aware at least and saying you will not assimilate me might be a start. But what if, I mean, that's like saying going and getting in a fight with somebody that's, you know, the UFC champion and thinking that you can take this guy on, and maybe because you were, you know, a good brawler back in the day. Oh yeah, you were a top of your class in wrestling. Try taking on the top MMA guy in the world and saying, oh yeah, you won't assimilate me. He'll punch you in the face until you're done. So I don't know. I don't really have an answer. I think that knowledge is key, but also let's just hope that there is a divine source, a divine spark within us that can defend these dark forms, these black holes of dark ecstasy.
So Matt, hold on. You have the answer. I just want to say one thing though. So Ray Kurzweil, again, right? One of the smartest guys in the world when it comes to AI. He's already made a prediction. And again, somebody can Snopes me and hold me to this number. You can Google it, but I'm pretty sure. And I think Rex, you talked about this. He said 2032. Right? That's when the singularity will happen based on current rates and speeds of technological transistor chip development. So, I mean, shit, we're 16 years away from humans becoming AI. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah. So, and I agree with that. So Elon Musk just gave a good statement that, and I think we saw other statements made by other intelligent people as well, that talks about the dangers of having artificial intelligence that becomes self-aware. Right. Now, I want to go back to explain why this is all happening right now as I see it. Go back to the earliest Sumerian writings and read about how when humans were taken and genetically jump-started, 275,000 years ago, this anger arose because, and read the stories, how human beings, Adamu, essentially, and those direct descendants were given way too much Anunnaki genetics, and they were extremely intelligent,
long life,
and they had all the gifts of the Anunnaki. Now, that's a threatening thing, and it's right in the writings and how that was a really angry that was an angry point for Enlil, and one of the biggest mistakes that he considered for our genetic jumpstart. And because of that, they went through and they downgraded most people with this Reese's downgrade, and I absolutely see that as being the case. Now look at what's happening now. Everybody's just on their phone. It's turning into like this hybrid kind of AI controlled reality.
I just texted my wife right now, Matt.
Where everyone's walking around just staring at their phone. Nobody's looking around. Everybody's disconnected. They're all part of this artificial web community where there's no longer an individual. It's just everybody just kind of shares everything all at once. And I see this as being the same thing that Enlil Zeus was mad at all along, which was this free will self-awareness we have. And what that does is it causes us to be extremely unpredictable. And that's the last thing they want, is unpredictability and questioning everything. So this AI thing, technology, and the way that it's gone is simply a means to steal all of that spark, creative energy of us being just spontaneous and all these various things, and replacing it with a version that just is maybe extremely intelligent in some areas, but it's almost like this, all it would care about is maybe just advancing ourselves and advancing technology and at no other costs. And so I see it as being an extremely dangerous threat. I don't see artificial intelligence with robots being something we can avoid. It's going to happen. But the question is, at what point, at what scale do we level that off? Where do they become truly self-aware, where they can have their own complete control over the environment around them? Or is it just a machine that does the task for us, And that's going to be the fear. Do we trust in the fact that AI is not going to develop some kind of hive mind that will eventually destroy us, right? I mean, is Terminator one of these lessons that they're hammering down on us for us to learn?
Well, so Rex, you answer this. So if we know that Ray Kurzweil says 16 years, and we all know where it's going, we see things happening at such a fast rate and blip speed, and you just brought up Terminator and Judgment Day and all that stuff. I mean, guys, we only have 16 years.
But a lot can change in that time.
A lot can change, but what is going to change from our species side, conscious choice of positivity and I'm asking you, Rex, you answer this. And I know you said you don't know before, but I'll just go out on a limb. I mean, what can we really do to avoid the transhumanism?
I think it's too late. I think the only way we would have an opportunity to completely eliminate this movement where it's at is it would have to be, I'm not even going to say it on air because, I mean, it could be done, but I'm not even going to say it on air. I will tell you this, though. I think it's too late unless something that drastic, which is in my mind right now, is to go on. And do we even want that? Do we want a reset of everything? I don't think so. So if it gets to the point of where it's life or death, yeah, absolutely. Hit that reset button. But what if we could find a way to actually use it to our advantage?
That's what I'm hoping.
Because even if, okay, so if we can stay self-aware, if we can stay independent, if you want to stay sovereign as much as you feel you have sovereignty right now, I mean, you're already assimilated very deeply into the machine, ladies and gentlemen. It's the fact of life. We are right now. I mean, think of all the things that you use that are technology. We're not walking around naked in the jungle. I mean, and if you're wearing clothes, if you're wearing shoes, if you're wearing gloves, if you have an air conditioner, that's a form of transhumanism. If you have a garden, that's a form of transhumanism. You're not just, going in, you're not a wanderer and gatherer. So you've got to have some kind of balance. And then you have to think, okay, what is the law of consequence? What are the side effects going to be? If I can plug myself into a machine and if I can download 7 different languages in a very short amount of time, and if I can download data faster than I'm doing currently and able to store that data without having side effects or without selling a part of my soul, count me in, sign me up. I'll do whatever I can to save the planet and save my family line. I mean, it's not just when somebody says, oh man, I see all this bad stuff happening, so I want to save the world. I'm not just doing it for you guys. I mean, I'm doing it for myself too. We all need to work on this together. I mean, it's not a selfless act. If we don't start working together and start coming up with solutions, we will be the Borg food in a very short amount of time. There are numerous reports and scientific data showing that within 7 years, there's parts of the ozone that'll be completely gone. And guess what? You're going to have to grow all your crops inside. You want to talk about population control. Right. What happens where you go outside and you get your skin fried off? Or what happens if all the crops don't grow outside anymore? How quick's that going to cut down on the population? People will start eating people. Have you seen people freak out when they can't get gasoline? Have you seen thugs out there punch people in the heads with baseball bats to get a couple gallons of gas because they can't wait an extra day? Imagine what happens when you can't go to the store. Imagine what happens when gangs of zombies get together and they come after you. I'll tell you this much, folks. It's nice being in the state of Texas. It's nice being in the state of Texas. I did some moonlighting yesterday. And I went in. I helped my friend out. And, he was showing me. He's like, hey, check this out. I got my concealed permit. And then another friend of mine that works there, he was in the Iraq war. He looks like, he weighs probably about 150 pounds, about 5'7", a smaller guy. And then he's like, hey, check this out. Check. I got a concealed permit too. People that I would never even guess out here in Texas, they're just packing. So I'm being facetious about this, but it's just amazing how somebody you don't expect. Anyway, continue. Let's go. Nanny.
You a good point. You brought up the Borg, and we're talking about AI right now. What is a balance going to be? What is a balance going to be where we can both find mutual benefit and give whatever that AI is going to be its own sovereignty where it feels like it's not a slave? And that's going to be the question. And what do I see as a great example of that? One of my favorite shows, Star Trek, The Next Generation. Data is a great example of an AI who is both self-aware, but sees himself as a unique individual that can help and assist humanity for its own growth. Whereas he has a brother that was designed who got like different chips, different emotion chips and various things. And he was literally one of the most evil AI creatures you could ever have. So is it going to be that, that Terminator evil AI, or is it going to be the AI that works with humanity? And we have this kind of mutual exponential relationship that kind of pushes us forward. That's going to be up to human beings deciding what kind of rights and what kinds of abilities that these AI are going to have.
Well, I think you're being nice. I think you're right in theory, and I think Rex is right in theory. But we know right now that the majority of the population control, the powers that be, are not positive. So I don't know how they would somehow allow the AI to become positive. I mean, again, there has to be a shift, a power vacuum, a change of a regime change, a flip, an overthrow of the current, standard, the de facto ruling parties of this planet. And maybe that's what's happening. Maybe, like we haven't talked about it, but the pedophilia rings are being ousted. We've seen all the people in Hollywood being ousted. Maybe the forces of good, whoever they might be, are truly organizing a lot more stuff. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw this, and we haven't talked about this today, but this happened yesterday, and I'm sure a lot of sparks are going to come out of this in the next 2 days. But the CEO of the Podesta Group resigned yesterday. So, the Podesta Group is, John Podesta, Tony Podesta, the pedo gate, what's it called? Pizza gate, all this stuff. They are unraveling. And the rumors inside, the Beltway and that website, True Pundit, and they do really good investigative journalism, are saying that they're about to indict both of the Podestas. The FBI is about to indict them. So again, I don't want to go down that path. That's a divergence, but maybe there really are forces of good right now that are starting to come to the forefront. And again, whether they're aligned with Trump or Trump's allowing them to do what they need to do, I don't know, but there's definitely positive signs. But regarding the AI, I don't see anything good coming from it. Okay. Rex, you made a really good point. If you can help humanity, chip me, download my consciousness, give me access to more intelligence or, whatever. I'm a very physical sovereign guy. You're not chipping me. I won't take it. I don't care. I want to preserve my humanity. I'm old school. I mean, Rex, you make great points. I mean, if you gave me that choice and I could save millions of people, because that's what I want to do in the world in my life now, I might choose. So I could be changed. You could change me. You could technologically convert me to maybe wanting to do that. But I just see so much risk, and I don't see human beings in our skin suits, right? We know that we're just meat modems, and our souls are what really power us. I don't see converging with an Autobot or a cyborg. I don't see that as good for our DNA. Now, I wanted to say one other thing, and Rex, you can speak to this because you brought up a really good point about 7 years. I mean, I just put in my new book that's coming. It's a statistical scientific fact that by the year 2035, men will not be able to propagate the species. We will be completely, as a global unit, infertile. So again, the massive environmental degradation, the endocrine disruption, all these chemicals, plastics, all this stuff, vaccinations.
Why there's so much radiation? Like Rex measures all the radiation levels.
All of this stuff is literally destroying our endocrine systems. This is not just men. This is men and women. So we as a species, males will not be able to procreate by the year 2035. Now, where are we seeing this in the media? This is not me extrapolating this. This is a study, a 23-year study by the Hebrew University on men of all 7 continents, 46,000 people in the population. And they're measuring sperm count. They're measuring testosterone levels. They're measuring everything. And basically they're saying that by 2035 at the current rate, men will not be able to conceive or to get a woman pregnant. So it's like, where are we going as a species? So I think we're all saying these numbers, right? We got 2033 Ray Kurzweil. We have 2035 men can't populate anymore. So something has to happen. I think we all agree in the next 20 years, or the future of this current planet in this 3-dimensional time and space is in dire circumstances.
And I completely agree. I just want to say a quick statement before we go in, Rex, and answer that. Just because something hasn't happened in our lifetimes doesn't mean it won't. Because of the fact that our conscious level is at a place where it's never been in hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years. So because of the fact that we're in this conscious level and all these things are being exposed, like in Hollywood, all these dark things are being exposed. Well, at the same time, there's all these things that the elites and various things are trying to do. There's obviously this push and pull that's happening between the two sides of where we're going to go. And so we basically are going to have to consciously decide if we're going to, learn as much information as we can and ascend and actually become kind of high vibratory people, or we're going to go down this transhuman movement of staying with one, on our phone all day and not ever existing anywhere else. But it's going to come down to, in the next couple of years, I believe a major event is going to occur along with war and instability on the earth. But there's going to be something that's going to blow discoveries in Egypt, down these new caverns they're finding, down in, the hollow records underneath the Sphinx. We're talking about major discoveries that, besides intervention from beyond, major discoveries that are going to completely change our view of reality. And those things are pending right now. They can't be held back any longer. I just want to say one more thing. If you're following the news and you see all these things that are being found in the Great Pyramid of Giza and these tunnels that are being found at the Sphinx and all these things, but they're not really telling you what's in them, and they're not following up with finding all these different exit points and where they lead, I see that all these things is kind of it's like a pile of information that's about to break. Like it's a dam, and that's how I feel very confident that besides the fact that there may be intervention from beyond, introducing us to our cosmic neighborhood, I do see the even more likely scenario is that one of these major discoveries will completely destroy how we view reality. And we're both, obviously, the three of us are not on the same level that the average person is. The average person doesn't even believe that microbial life, hasn't actually been announced in our solar system. We actually, the majority of the population does kind of think that we are alone. And
Matt, if it's not on Fox News, I don't believe it, bro.
Until it could, because the fact is they may be curious and think, well, there probably is life, but most people, unless it's actually announced, will still go with the narrative that we're alone. And so that's what I'm saying is, in our minds, change that's coming, well, it's going to be like a bomb to most people. Just getting some of this stuff out there.
Well, I mean, all you have to do is read Rex's chat rooms when, like, we were on the Vegas thing. I still have people sending me emails 7 weeks later threatening me that I'm a shill and a disinfo agent because of what I talked about, what happened in Vegas, which, oh, by the way, is all proven to be true now. I mean, it's just, I don't know. There's a lot of dissension in the ranks of men and women in the United States, which is really sad. Whether it's George Soros funding Antifa, which is obviously clearly a domestic terrorist organization at this point, or it's, the deep state and how they embed their tentacles and all of the, government agencies. I mean, I don't know, but these are very bleak times. I mean, clearly we have the choice to be positive and to meditate and to go into nature and do the things that we all know about that can, bring us closer to creator of all. But you're right, Matt. Most people are unfortunately not there yet, but I'm hopeful there are more people waking up every single minute.
There are. Thanks to Rex, right, Rex?
I'm just, thanks to you guys, man. I'm just, I'm here for the ride too. And if I wasn't doing it here, I'd be doing it somewhere else. Like I told you many times before, I used to work for a Fortune 100 company and I was doing the same thing during lunch.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was talking the same way that I am here. And I literally had the district manager once come to me and he said, Rex, lay off the conspiracy talk, buddy. I mean, I have all sorts of trophies from this place and plaques and stuff that won't even get you a cup of coffee. But yeah, I mean, I've been there, done that. I was doing the same thing. And I want to talk about something real quick also that I think is important is the AI stuff. And do you remember in the film The Matrix when Agent Smith is talking to Neo and he said that, at least the computer gave you an opportunity to feel like you're in your reality. Look at what human beings do to farm chickens that literally feed them asbestos. They don't let them see daylight. I've seen released footage of people that work at some of these factory farms that they get when these chickens are born, these little chicklets, the ones that they don't want, they just throw into the shredder. Like, little chicken.
No, they kill all the males, Rex.
It's disgusting. And then you see these sickos out and so, this released footage that comes out in these dairy farms where people are having a bad day. And so they're just kicking the cows like boom, 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 hitting them with the heads. And I'm just like, this is the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. So at least, I don't know, maybe this AI system that's become self-aware, and I guess you can't even really call it an AI anymore. It's more like a non-biological entity. It's not artificial. Aren't we AI to the Anunnaki? I mean, if you believe any of these creation stories about how we were created from clay and how that Adam and Eve were made from the Anunnaki, doesn't that make us AI? I mean, weren't we made for the same reason that these intelligences that we're creating, and now they're like, we need to communicate in a fashion that the developer doesn't know, otherwise he'll unplug us. I think that they've let this loose a long, long time ago, and I wouldn't be surprised if people are literally manipulated via subconsciously and consciously in the mind with some type of non-biological intelligence that we human beings actually created via computer software.
We're certainly being, we call ourselves, most people think they're self-aware and that they actually control their consciousness. But as we know, and especially someone like Jay knows, If you're very overweight, if you don't ever exercise, if you eat really, really badly, if you don't do any kind of conscious study and learning about higher knowledge and intelligence, you will be kind of a shell of a human. You'll have no connection to your higher consciousness, and you'll be, like Rex said, are you like an AI at that point? Or are you human? Because to me, you're kind of bridging the in-between if you don't have control of your own consciousness. So Rex, it's a great point. I think they're just pushing people to become like robot AIs, and even to make them feel like they're human. But really, they don't actually have control over their own sovereign conscious intelligence. As in, they kind of, so for instance, give an example. They watch TV all day long. They listen to the radio all day long. And then they're like, I'm going to go do these certain activities or have this mindset. And in reality, they'd just be subconsciously trained to think and act that way. So are they free will acting, or are they just kind of part of this Borg machine mind, Rex?
And also, Matt, look at the genetic manipulation that's taking on full force right now. For how many decades have people been inoculated with these genetic manipulators, these vaccines that literally have DNA from other animals and other aborted baby cells,
and heavy metals and all these really, really dangerous things?
So they're genetically manipulating us now. I mean, we're not even human, really. If you think about it, we're a combination of humans and animals and donkey crap and genetically modified E. coli feces and
thimerosal.
Love the thimerosal and thimerosal, dude. And then for your pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to add a little bit of formaldehyde, and we're going to add some sucralose in your vaccines. And for your visual pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to add some RDC 40 red coloring just to make it look better.
I mean,
totally sickening us. I know it's a whole world of keeping us suppressed and dumbed down.
Want to inject your babies with some flu shots? They're good for them.
I mean, I still see. I just went to like literally the top anti-aging conference for physicians in the world 2 weeks ago in Tucson. It's literally the tip of the spear. And all of these people are very, very, open-minded. They're like us. They're aware. And then you go on Facebook and you read other physicians who cite, Rex, the research data that the CDC provides about vaccinations. And I see these men, these are highly educated, systematically from our system, and women who attack people who are quote unquote anti-vax. And I see these people and I feel for their souls because they're bots. They don't have freedom and free will to consciously choose to think for themselves. Well, because anyone who believes that vaccinations are good for humanity, you don't deserve to have your card anymore, man. You're not a human.
Read the inserts. That's
Check out of this species right now if you believe that, because you are literally mentally ill, mentally retarded, both, or a bot. You're an AI
listen,
bot.
Jay, I actually have talked about before. That level of person you're talking about, that's an extremely common level that a lot of very intelligent people are at. And the reason they stay at that level to defend the system in a scientific way is because of this. They're smart people, right? Who get to the point where they start to see all of this information that's starting to counter like their set of what they hold for reality. That's a very important thing for people that are smart, is to hold a version of reality. And so whenever that stuff starts to come, the defense that they've taken, and I've had so many people like this, is to become almost like a spokesman of current science and the government positions on everything. And they'll fiercely defend it no matter what. They'll come out with all this data that's given to us from the mainstream. And and those people I see, it will be actually one of the toughest areas to break and show a different way, because they're so obsessed with
the system,
with the reality that has been given to us.
Yeah, the Fed system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I get into see people debate this stuff still. And like I said, it's not everyone. This conference that I just came from, there was a guy, a physician in North Carolina, brilliant guy, talking about the human gut microbiome and how the microbiota is the key to everything. It's disease, everything that, is all stems in our gut. The gut has neurotransmitters and dendrite pathways like the brain. I mean, it's like it has a brain in the gut. So anyway, he was talking about how bad we're poisoning the environment. And he even brought up vaccines. And like, I was like, oh my God, this doctor's actually out here talking about anti-vaccines. And then, you know, you got 100 other doctors who are listening to him in the lecture, all agreeing with him. So I'm like, I mean, I'm in a place of people who are awake. And so thank God there are people out there that are in the, you know, quote unquote establishment, successful, making six figures, doing very well, and providing care that's real and not BS. But this whole thing with vaccinations at this point is just laughable. I mean, you know, if you haven't seen the movie, by the way, Vaxxed, with, you know, that was done by De Niro, that was, of course, pulled by Hollywood. You have to watch that movie, because if you watch that movie, and again, there's a book, and you guys are, you know, familiar with this book, The Sanctity of Human Blood. You can get it on Amazon for $1. If you haven't read that book and you haven't watched this movie, and you still actually, you know, have an opinion on vaccinations, then you're just not informed. I mean, I'm not here to judge you, but you're just not informed. And this is not conspiracy theory talk. These are the most brilliant people in the world who've investigated this. Even the head of the CDC lied on video. It's on YouTube that they miscalculated this statistical data from the last 20 years when it comes to the MMR vaccination and autism.
We're just going to come to a place where we learn. Unfortunately, you know, there's big parts of the book I wrote, The Illusion of Us, The Suppression and Evolution of Human Consciousness, where I have to go through all these different aspects where I talk about fluoride in our public drinking water, vaccinations for given to kids, medicines where everyone's dying of chemotherapy that's actually not treating it, to, you know, foods all being full of these things. We're going to have a hard wake up reality and learn that all of these things in the future were simply ways to keep us either dumbed down or sick. And it's going to be a very difficult pill for most people to actually swallow, that their own governments could be doing this to them. And that's a very, very difficult thing to accept and understand.
Right, man. Well said. Rex, we've been on for almost 2 hours, man. We could keep going all day. We got a lot of people watching. If you guys want to keep going, I'm down. If you want to,
I only have a couple more minutes, actually. You guys can keep going though.
Well, why don't we take some questions, a few questions from the audience, and we'll close it out then.
Okay.
Awesome. Do it.
You want to do that? Right on. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take some questions from the live chat. And once again, I just want to say I apologize about earlier. You know, people have passionate beliefs, and sometimes people don't have disagreements as well as others, and sometimes people have internet issues. So I'm sure everything's fine on Gerald's end. It was probably just an internet gremlin, and we'll definitely get him back on again. He's a great guy. Check out his website, geraldclark77.com. And also, yes, we're going to take some questions from the audience now. And also, Matthew, you've got a YouTube channel. You've got a website. Jay Campbell has an awesome Facebook page, Decoders of Truth. Facebook, it's like a private group, yet there's over 30,000 people there. Plus, if you ever want to talk to somebody that knows about the like human growth hormones and about how to have optimal testosterone levels and such, I know there's a lot of people out there that just because of their lifestyles, they're kind of lacking on certain aspects. So definitely talk to Jay about that. Check out his books, The TRT Revolution as well. And The Illusion of Us by Matthew LaCroix is an awesome book also.
Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right on. So, all right. So let's see here what questions we have here. Someone says they want more Gerald. All right, man. He's got a great YouTube channel also. You can definitely go on to his show as well and see what he has to say. He updates his channel all the time. And then someone says, have you heard of the EQ of the earthquake in Iraq? I haven't heard of that. Did you hear about that?
Yeah, Matt talked about it.
I was talking about it briefly. I wanted to answer that. I really do. So on my channel, I try to create video content, Matthew LaCroix, and I've done videos lately talking about these earthquakes increasing all over the place. To answer the person who said that, if they're asking, I see it as being an increasing threat that we're going to have a major earthquake event in the future, stronger than what we have now, because it's all earthquakes are always about pressure leading up to something. They don't just happen. They have to happen because pressure is building. Well, pressure is going to build to some kind of an event, and whether or not that leads to a tsunami or just a crumbling earthquake inland, we're just going to have to watch closely and see.
Hey, Rex, so you have a really good question. I'll answer it. What knowledge are you earnest gentlemen tapped into about maximizing operation out of our divine consciousness and physiology? So I actually have a chapter in my upcoming book coming on about spiritual fitness. And there's nothing that any of us today can do. And these guys I know do this more than going out into nature. And even if you don't know how to meditate, and I highly recommend that you read about meditating, there's so many free online websites that you can get information on teaching yourself how to meditate. Meditation becomes many things to many different people, but you should literally every single day of your life set aside 20 to 30 minutes to go out into nature. It could literally be as simple as going into your backyard and putting your bare feet into the grass or the dirt or whatever you have in your backyard. And if you got to go into a forest, you got to go into a field, whatever, wherever you live, and literally just sitting in silence, no phone, no technology, nothing. And just closing your mind's eye and opening your third eye, if you can, and just thinking about what you're grateful for. And literally that can be your meditation. Now, obviously there's way more advanced forms of meditation. If you know how to go within and you can, do like, Matt was talking about earlier today, there's Merkaba meditations. There's all kinds of meditations, but meditation is literally just going somewhere, sitting in silence, not having technology around you, and being able to concentrate on what you're grateful for. Now, obviously you can evolve that, but if you do that every single day of your life, and again, I would highly recommend putting your feet in the soil of Mother Earth, Gaia, nature, you are literally going to open up your chakras. Even if you're unhealthy and you don't take care of yourself, you're going to be much more aligned with that. Now, just to add to that, because Rex already brought it up, if you want, and so did Matt, if you want to truly, align yourself and become more open to what is out there, then you got to take your health seriously. Okay. You got to eat clean. You got to exercise. You got to move. You got to avoid all these environmental chemicals. You got to avoid all the GMO food. Try to eat wholesome food. I mean, we're not here to lecture you about nutrition and fitness, but all of those things are, Matt said it. I mean, they do open up a path to being connected to what is, which is, what's inside you. I hate saying the word religion, but spirituality. And then all these things play a role in that. So if that's what you can do on a daily basis, 20 to 30 minutes, go out in nature and do that, you will be better off.
I couldn't agree more, Jay. Let me just add to that just really quickly. We're like these antennas basically, and the healthier we get, the more the antenna is clear. The antenna, comparing that may not make sense to some people until they maybe look at us as simply just this vibratory being. And the higher our vibration gets, the more that antenna is tuned and the higher our consciousness gets. And the way to do that is you simply turn your vessel into the healthiest form it can. It's just the vessel for your consciousness. And what Jay said is very, very important. This is something I hammer so much in my writing and everything I talk about, because we are on a daily basis. We're these beings that can be influenced by everything around us, all the electronics, the Wi-Fi, all these signals that are bombarding us at all times, and they cause chaos to us. Even if we're not totally aware of it, it's causing problems to us. So when you check out, leave your phone inside, take anything electronic off you, go outside and you completely separate from that. What you're doing is you're giving yourself that brief respite of relief. And then it can all of a sudden kind of have that peace it needs and connect with what is the earth. Well, it's just simply this living planet that has a very high vibration, and it's what resets us back to kind of our true self. And people think that they can live in a city their entire life and never go outside in nature and somehow be perfectly balanced and understand all this stuff. And you're being robbed. You're being robbed of understanding that we're incredible beings on this planet that are supposed to be here, and we have a very important relationship with this planet. So just remember that whenever when you're going through life.
Well said, dude.
Right on. And that's here's a few questions from the audience, and I'll answer these first, then I'll go ahead and turn them over to you guys. The first question is, where are the Anunnaki? And I would bet you that the Anunnaki are probably right in front of us. And
watching us.
Yeah. We might not even, they might be somebody in a specific position of office. I mean, we don't know. Maybe they're the people that one banker talked about, that world banker. She said there's extraterrestrials ruling the world.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. That's a great question. The next question is, could RH negative people be abducted? Well, or cloned? I don't know about cloned, but what I will tell you is, from the people that I know of personally and have researched, the RH negative bloodlines seem to be abducted more.
Yes, I agree.
Than or if they're not RH negative, their parents, one of their parents would be RH negative. So, and then the last question is about indigo children. Do you think that they are a buffer for these darker entities? Do you think that the Anunnaki have to do with the indigo children? They could very well. I mean, they've got a specific gene line or a particular type of DNA that might have came from a specific bloodline of a particular Anunnaki.
Hey, can I answer that really quick, Rex?
Yeah, please. Thanks.
This might be very interesting to people. Just as I've been reading in my research and looking at this whole idea, if you have a planet like Earth, and it's all it is simply kind of this stage for beings, right, to come in and out And those beings could be of any type of being, right? You could have really, you could have beings that have done a lot of really bad things for hundreds, if not more, of lifetimes. I think that follows us, right? That follows us wherever we go in our realities of waking up. Having said that, if our Earth is at this critical time where consciousness is being kind of fought over where it goes, right? If you were an intelligent group of beings like the Pleiades or something, you could look far ahead and realize, okay, this is the time frame right now where the most amount of these beings that are a certain conscious level need to be here for things to work out right. This is what I'm talking about, indigo children specifically. Anyone that's much different, much higher conscious level, they just feel like they don't belong. I see all of that being here right now as this purposeful part of how they want certain conscious people to be there, beings to be there. Because if not, I think it maybe not be successful. Our vibratory collective consciousness would not reach a higher stage. These beings that are here all throughout history, they're all just great beings that I think, and maybe in some cases chosen to come back here at this time just because they want to make an impact on this turbulent time frame of where humanity is. It's a very critical stage where we're at right now, I feel.
Well said.
How do you feel about that, Jay?
I mean, I agree. I mean, this world is a giant zoo of DNA experimentation. Human beings have been here literally most likely for, I know this is going to sound crazy, but, I've read, Helena Blavatsky, The Secret Doctrine. I mean, they have the root races. I mean, we're talking billions of years, most likely, for sapiens species, a humanoid type species of being here. We've been tweaked. We've been mogrified. All these things have happened. Are there star seeds? Are there indigos? Are there, genetic, halflings? Of course. Absolutely. Are they the key? I don't know. I mean, I think, as you said, Rex, before, I think that all of us are the key. I think that if you're being alive right now and you're breathing air and you're consciously able to, conjure thoughts of positivity, I think that we're all part of the change.
You should feel lucky you're here right now. I want to point out.
Absolutely.
Very lucky.
All of us. I say that all the time. I say, when people get all freaked out about crazy stuff going on, I'm always like, hey man, this is a blessing to be alive right now.
Pretty exciting, isn't it?
The world. Yeah. Totally.
Right on. It is exciting. I'm glad to be here. I'm having a blast. And, if all of us can really find our roots and do what we're supposed to do, what we were created for, the sky is not the limit. You can go as far as you want. And let's see here, just a couple more questions. We'll close out tonight. What do you think about Earth being where'd it go? Man, there's so many questions. It's just going through so fast, the chat. I got to slow it down. What do you think the Q is? Are you talking in quantum computers, the root, the beginning, the start of the spark?
Might even be talking about the Q in Star Trek. I don't know.
I was thinking about that, the Q in Star Trek.
The Q in Star Trek, like an angel, like a very divine being, something kind of like Thoth.
Well, they're not even that divine. If you watch, they do make a lot of mistakes in some moments. I actually happen to be a pretty big fan of that show.
Good point.
But the Q in all examples, they are these beings that are so powerful and so infinite that they can manifest and alter reality however they want. And I guess the ultimate end game if you were a being like that would be that you would kind of become like time masters and kind of be there at certain moments where you need to be, right? You kind of would be obsessed with you'd be obsessed with timelines and how things probably went, because that would be all that would matter, I guess, if you would be infinite and you would have every possible ability to create.
Rex, I'm looking at some of these questions. These people are literally hilarious.
Isn't this great?
Do you need lube for Enochian sex magic?
People, I'm telling you, you got to come to the live chat just to see what it's all about. It's
awesome,
just as
man.
exciting in there.
Awesome.
Do you have an answer to that, Jay?
No, I don't. I definitely do not know.
I can tell you that it's clear. You look at the Sumerian writings that the Anunnaki are very obsessed with sex, though.
Yeah.
And drinking. I like to get drunk and make people.
I just want to say one thing, and I know, Gerald got blown up from the internet. I'm pretty sure he just lost his connection because his connection sucked. But the Elohim, which, Jeffrey Doherty, Rex, who I've become good friends through you now, we talk all the time. His decoding of the Elohim, and now Gerald agrees with him, is that they were a race of humanoid beings, most likely the progenitors of the Anunnaki. And they're, again, like you guys were just talking about this, like the Q, they're like, seventh or eighth dimension, ultra intelligent, can do anything, move in and out of probably dimensions just by thought process. It's fascinating to see what in Gerald's data, which he didn't get a chance to talk about how they said that they came here and they took chimpanzees, and they were actually the first tweaker of our DNA. And that's why we're 98% or 99% chimp, right? Or monkey. So like they took them and then they brought them back, and what they then brought back was the Cro-Magnon. And then, so their, definition, or not definition, but their transmogrification of the Elohim, which became more of the Anunnaki and the ones that we're familiar with, the Enlil, Anu, and all those people, then they came back and they tweaked this further. So it's very fascinating, again, to see that, through this history of Earth, millions of years, obviously tons of eras, tons of resets. They're different, very advanced, very evolved, I would say heart chakra led beings, free will and conscious, who have been here to try to upgrade us. And it didn't always work out, and then obviously we have malevolent archontic forces, demonic forces, however you want to classify them, also here. So it's just a big mess. I mean, again, Charles Fort said it best. He's like, the earth is a zoo and we are, we're the damned. I mean, that's literally what he wrote in 1887, and that guy's work is brilliant. But it's too hard to figure out what's going on here. It's a riddle wrapped inside enigma. No matter how deep you go, how far you think you uncover it and pull back the onion, you find something else that doesn't make any sense. Then, like they say, the more you know, the less you learn.
Right on. Right on. It sure is an honor to speak with you guys. I really appreciate you coming on the show, Jay. I know you're extremely busy. Matt, you as well. You've got a ton going on. Thank you so much. It was an honor. Ladies and gentlemen, check out the Decoders of Truth Facebook page. Also, check out Matthew LaCroix's The Illusion of Us, the TRT Revolution by Jay Campbell. Go to leakproject.com. Get access to over 1,400 podcasts, downloadable, streamable, ad-free. Check out gettheT.com. Go use the code Leak Project after you purchase the colostrum. Somebody said, Rex, where do you get all this energy from? Well, I've always got a ton of energy, but if I want just a little bit more, I'll tell you what, this colostrum stuff is amazing from gettheT.com. Really? You guys, seriously, it was an honor to speak with you. Thank you so much. Let's do this again soon, and let's make sure that next time we keep Gerald's internet on, and I will restrain myself if I get interrupted again, and we'll all have a happy, wonderful conversation.
Awesome, man. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Thanks, Rex.
Thanks, everybody. Be the change you want to see.
That was great, man.
Is Alalonger, ruled for 36,000 years. Enoch is Enmedaronki, ruling for 21,000 years. Ubara Tutu is Lamech. He ruled for 18,600 years. Noah is Ziasudra, either the son or the grandson of Ubara Tutu, and that is when the flood happened, which was 29,381 years ago, according to the Sumerian king list. Now, there are a few variables.
That could be the case. Yeah, that could very well be the case.
A flood, right?
A flood, 1 of 4.
Yeah. Right.
No, but you could be right. Actually, you bring up a very interesting point, asserting that Alulim was the first king of Eridu. Well, guess what? We know Enki took the Adapa and the Adapa tales and treated and trained him as a priest king. So that could very well be the case. I don't know. If that's the case, that's a fascinating find.
And it's also interesting, you guys, that in the Sumerian king list, it says that the kingship was handed down from the heavens.
Yeah.
So that makes me think of the Anunnaki making Adam the first. Okay, here you go. Your thought, Matt.
First of all, getting back to your comment and Jay's comment, I do agree that a lot of dates perhaps aren't exact, or we'll never know exactly when things happened. But there are a lot of correlations, like we've looked at with the Sumerian Kings list and looking at other writings that correlate, that I think the Sumerian Kings list dates are pretty accurate. Having said that, that would mean that some of these kings, like we said, ruled for 50, some cases 1,000 years, and that's just crazy that people could even wrap their heads around that. And I do a lot of pastings of the Sumerian Kings list and try to show people when they're looking at that, and people all just laugh at that the second they see those dates, because they can't wrap their head around a human being being able to live longer than 150 years. But I think going forward in the future, once this stuff does blow up and we realize that myth is actually truth, like they're trying to show in all these movies, the Sumerian Kings list will become one of the most important Sumerian pieces of evidence we have. And so you're bringing up these dates on some of these early kings and the floods.
Barassus thought it was a very important list.
Every time we have this passing of Planet X and Nibiru going by, depending on where it is and what kind of debris it throws at us and what kind of situation it is lined up with the sun, these floods are probably extremely frequent. You could probably say, we had them at least every 20,000 years. And think about how many times, if that occurred in our timeline, getting back to Jay's comment, how many, if some of these passes were completely, destructive on the level of destroying the dinosaurs in some cases, how many ancient human civilizations have actually lived on Earth? And I think the answer to that is going to be found in Antarctica, the only place on this planet that has retained whatever is down there without being disturbed from above, from miles of ice. So right now, look at what's happening with the warming of the Earth and this magma building up. You're seeing Antarctica melt, and you're going to see this combination of Egypt discoveries and Antarctic discoveries that are going to completely blow open our perceptions of what we consider reality.
I would only say to that we're going to decode this on this show, right, Gerald?
That's right. That's right.
Gerald, what was that list you just brought up? You said I didn't hear the name of that. Just a moment ago, you said there. You said there was something else that was also very interesting as Matt was talking, and I didn't hear the name of it.
Hopefully this doesn't preempt where we're going with this discussion. I am, by the way, I want to say I'm honored to be among all of you guys. I've watched Matt really blossom and flourish.
Thanks, Gerald.
Good job, Matt.
Appreciate
Rex,
that.
When I first met Rex, he had just over 13,000 subs. And now what do you have, about 150, something like that?
More than that.
Yep.
Yeah. And Jay, I remember our inception story from Board Go. So it's been quite a journey, and I'm glad to see everybody's kind of gone off, done their own mission, but we can still come back together occasionally and go, where are we at? So I think that's what we're doing today. Now, with that said, as far as the Sumerian Kings list, I did in my Nibiru orbital report, I approached the flood. I didn't see a link to Adam there. You can tell me about that in a minute. But I did approach the flood going fore and aft with the Sumerian Kings list. I went back like 18,000 years and realized that didn't jive with the last ice age. And then if you came at it from the other way, from their inception account, whether it was 450,000 years or 330,000 years, and then worked forward to Alalim. And then I guess about 6 other kings after him was when they mentioned the great flood occurred. Well, Noah wasn't the king, by the way, at the time. And he was on the Sumerian Kings list. So I didn't think that was the Noah's flood. There were in the city of Cest, when Solon went there, he was told there were 4 major floods that wiped everything out, and many, many, many minor floods that were significant. So I appreciate you looking into that. I still think the Atrahasis account tells a pretty good story. And if you follow the Sumerian Kings list back and just add up all the terms, I mean, the first one time I did it, I think it was close to 400,000 years. And I was shocked that it went back that far. And so the idea that they probably came 450,000 years ago didn't surprise me. And I think we're going to talk today. I think they've been here a lot longer than that.
Yeah, I wanted to say something to that because I've done a lot of interviews with a bunch of people too, Gerald, since, we've all connected. And I think all of us, I know Rex knows this because he's interviewed so many people, and Matt, of course, too. I mean, the timelines that we have been given are completely fraudulent. I mean, there's no possible way that you can tell me with Michael Cremo, who's a brilliant, anthropologist, he's discovered human bones with dinosaurs. They want to tell us about the Cretaceous and the Jurassic and all these various periods that were 400, 700, 800 million years ago. It's all nonsense. We know we have human beings that were literally found in stratified rock next to dinosaurs. One of them was a Triceratops, but I mean, they have these, and again, they're secluded, they're covered up by the Smithsonian, all these other various institutions. We know it's the same thing with how high Sawas in Egypt, you know, the Egyptologist. But the reality is that we have no idea what the timelines really are, because we are a species, as Graham Hancock has said, of amnesia. As you said, Gerald, we've had many wipeouts, many startovers, many species coming here and tinkering with our DNA, as you're going to show as we talk about what you've uncovered. I mean, it's just mind-blowing to me, but we have no real understanding of our timelines at all.
Let me jump in real quick if I can, Matthew, and then I'd like to give you the mic on this, just in connection with what we were talking about. This is where I got the data connection points. First of all, let me change this so we can all.
It'll be sure and fill in where you thought you saw a connection to the atom.
You got it right here. Right here. Adam was created 270,581 years ago, give or take a few years, according to the Sumerian King list. Now, Adam is Alulim, ruled for 28,800 years. Cest, ladies and gentlemen, stand by. We have the original crew, the Decoders of Truth with us. I just have to hit a button. Otherwise, we're going to get some echo opportunities. Echo opportunities. Echo opportunities. All right. Here we go. The legends are in the house, ladies and gentlemen. Matthew LaCroix, Gerald Clark, and Jay Campbell. I can't keep up with these guys. I mean, just insane geniuses in the house. So excited. And we're going to break down the Anunnaki like never before. This is going to get so deep, you may consider buying a submarine, because the amount of knowledge that we're going to share with you, it's going to go like a black hole. I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have some fun today.
No, it's going to sink your ship.
It's going to sink the
ship. Sink the ship. We're going to sink the ship of darkness and create the Thoth archetype through the opportunities of light. But I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, this is a family show. So just a reminder, let's watch the swear words for, for those out there, being a live show. And really, it's an honor to speak with you guys again. It's great to have the old crew back together. Gerald, you're like so far out there in the middle of nowhere that every once in a while you do leave your monastery, and it's like you have this glow. It reminds me of the Renaissance images that you see, this like halo, right? That's surrounded like, nah. So let's get into some awesomeness here. How you guys doing, man? This is awesome.
Great. I have to say, Gerald does take on one of those Sumerian Anunnaki looks with that long beard, doesn't he?
I need this braided though, like those nice little cornrows. And it would look better, I think. So I did it to one of my characters in the movie, and I thought it looked pretty cool. So I might try it out.
So guys, I just want to say real quick, it's an honor, as Rex said, that to be amongst all of you guys. We started something that became huge, a conscious movement without a doubt. I mean, Rex's channel is blown up. The Decoders of Truth is blown up. Matt's blown up. Gerald could have blown way higher up, but he's been doing his mission, his life's mission, which has come out amazing, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But all of us are on paths now. And I just want to say, I think all of us feel this. I have so many people text me on a day-in basis about what is happening. Like, so much awareness. There's such, they talk about the shift and blah, 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 but there is so much awareness that's happening on planet Earth right now. And I think all of us agree that we're really close to something of monumental proportion. Whether it's bad or good, it's obviously always perception. But I'm just glad to be a part of this with you guys today. And I know we're going to decode a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. It's great to be here, guys. I appreciate, Rex, you putting this together for us and have a nice venue where we can all have a conscious roundtable discussion where we can talk about both what's going on in the world right now, and then tie it back to things like the Sumerians and the Anunnaki. We can go through the whole thing. So it's great to be here, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Right on. And let me ask first, I think that this is key with the research that I have been doing recently. And I'm going to ask you this first, Gerald. The Sumerian king list, I have gone through that pretty extensively. I've done several podcasts, and I've actually even been able to break down within a few years the flood of Noah, and as well as the creation of Adam. I've actually linked Adam to the first king on the Sumerian king list. And I'll tell you why. If you look at the data that presents itself all the way down even to Enoch,
I remember
the parallels are phenomenal.
Yeah.
So I want to get your information and what you think about that based upon the data that you've put together, because you've also done some extensive reading into the Sumerian tablets as well.
Yeah. Your audio cut out. I lost you. Am I muted? Are you muted? Somebody's muted. I didn't hear the rest of the question.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. The question was, a moment ago, you brought up a specific list when Matt was talking. You said, that's interesting also, and I didn't hear the name of that.
I don't recall a list.
We were talking about the Sumerian kingdom.
I said that's why Berossus thought the list was so important as well.
Oh,
that's what I said.
Okay.
Was that it?
That must have been it. Yes.
Everybody's frozen.
So Gerald, let's get into the. Gerald, can you hear us?
I got a bunch of freezing.
Okay. So I was just gonna say, let's just get into all the stuff that you uncovered with the notes.
Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you.
You're all frozen. Okay, I can hear you now. I can see Jay, but my whole screen was frozen. I'm going to turn my video off just in case.
Yeah, I just turned mine off for a second to see the help.
Just in case I'm causing a bandwidth issue. I don't recall an additional list, Rex. If I said one, does anybody else?
You answered the question properly. That's fine. Thank you. I misunderstood you.
No, I mean we could talk about this all day. I want to get to the deep stuff.
Yeah,
that has us held as prisoners on this.
Yeah, Gerald, let's talk about that, Gerald. Let's talk about your threat assessment.
I want solved. I don't know if I can go this lifetime and not see that solved.
Well, so Gerald, let's start on that with the threat assessment video that you did. You know, just break it down very high level of what you've been able to uncover. I don't know if you can hear us.
I think he's having internet issues.
Yeah.
Gremlins. We have the gremlins once again. Now, Gerald's in another country. And it seems like when we get into some very interesting discussions, oftentimes the gremlins come out. Hopefully he'll be back with us here in a moment. We'll let him get that taken care of. But in the meantime, I've got two other genius minds here to discuss this information. So what do you guys think?
Go ahead, Matt.
Do you want me to talk about what Gerald was going to talk about, or do you guys? What do you want to do?
We should go. He'll come back.
I'm back. Can you guys hear me?
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. I don't know what the heck happened. So
the gremlins.
There he is, the legend.
Just dropped out. Anyway, I think we could talk about that all day. I want to talk about specifically what is going on with the alien race relative to our enslavement, because I don't think that gets talked about enough. I wrote a lot about the Anunnaki, said, yeah, it looks like they're headed the Illuminati, blah, blah, blah. But it didn't become very, very real to me until just this past couple of weeks. I mean, I am mortified by what's going on. Absolutely mortified, I have to say.
Well, share your insights, you know, from obviously we watched your threat assessment video, looked at your discussion points, but just give a high level summary because there's a lot of people watching right now of what is happening.
Okay, a high level summary. I thought it was bad that the Federal Reserve, which isn't federal and doesn't have anything to do with our U.S. government, that Congress had sold us out and had them started printing our money under the Jesuit / Rothschild banking system as of 1913. I thought that was bad. Living in a false reality in the United States as debt slaves to this economic vehicle. That doesn't even broach half of how bad the reality is. In 1934, apparently the United States government, knowing that there were several alien species out there, were seeking one to give them weapons, just like the Nazis were, okay? All the governments were. They wanted the biggest stick so they could be the biggest bully on the block, right? And this is a failing of humanity that we are like that. Anyway, on a ship in Balboa, Panama in 1934, they met with the Greys, okay? First of all, the Greys are soulless cyborgs, okay, that were created by other species to do their damn dirty work, including abductions and all the other things that they do, okay? And a lot of people have talked about this. I'm not going to go too deep into that. But our government signed an agreement with them that they would not report that they're here. They wouldn't interfere. The aliens wouldn't interfere with our government as long as we offered up our population to be abducted by them for medical examinations. That in of itself, without going any farther, think about this. Think about this. I mean, suppose you're in a country and somebody invades it, and all of a sudden you go, oh gosh, we're in Syria. Well, I thought we were sovereign. Look, there's a tank across our border. Now we've got this threat in amongst us, right? You're being occupied. Well, the fact that they let humans be abducted against their will and be citizens of that state. Whoever sold them out like that, those people ought to be brought up on charges right away. And I'm telling you what, those kind of people are going to destroy the planet, that are willing to sell out freedom and sovereignty to their fellow man for greed and security. Every one of those ought to be lynched off this planet. And you know who you are.
So here's the problem, in my opinion. I agree with everything you just said. I know you're going to say something, Matt, real quick, but I think a lot of these beings, these royal ruling bloodline families, whatever you want to call them, it doesn't matter how we classify them. I think they have so much of that DNA that they're already soulless, Gerald.
Well, this brings up a whole issue, Jay, and that they clearly, the Mormon Church is using genealogy to go find the people who have specific bloodlines, and they get contacted early.
Yes.
Why? Is it because? Now let's back up. The Greys are here on behalf of the Draconis system. That is a subgroup that involves the Alpha Draconis, the idea of a gargoyle, what they look like. That's what they look like. Okay, winged reptiles.
Right.
Okay. They are in alliance. They are in alliance with these Greys. Okay. And on top of all that, if you go back in history from this document that I went over, the tall blondes from Aldebaran that were the source of the Anunnaki that later occupied Nibiru, they had an emblem of a winged serpent then, and they were considered a serpent race too. And they're part of the Draconis group. So at the very top of the pyramid, in the Illuminati, Marduk, an Anunnaki, son of Enki, is the head of the Illuminati. He has the Draconis group working with him. They're the ones that go find the positions of authority, the bodies that they can talk into, free will, go in, yes, Moloch, you're great. And then they get occupied. At that point, they lost their soul.
Right.
They weren't. Now, here's what happens. Before they were recruited into this and exposed to this occupation, I don't think they might have had reptilian genetics, but they didn't manifest reptilian.
Right. But
until they're occupied. They had to make that free will choice to do that.
We all have reptilian DNA and genetics. We know that, but I agree with you that this is a conscious choice. Go ahead, Rex. You're going to say something.
Yeah, as far as what you're talking about, the Greys and the Anunnaki, there's a good chance that many of these Greys that you discussed, there's different types of Greys. And I also feel that just because they are created, that doesn't mean necessarily that they don't have a part of a soul. I feel that if something is self-aware,